Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Battle of Ontario Hockey Podcast, featuring a Senators fan and a Leafs fan. We're here to talk about your two favorite teams, the rest of the NHL, local hockey, hockey all around the world, and to bring back memories from your favorite hockey teams and players. If you love the Leafs, Sens, Sens, NHL, or any other hockey, including the late Belleville Bulls, you are going to want to tune into our podcast. The gloves are off, the buckets are spinning, let's get the chirps flying. Welcome to the BOOclub!
Hey guys, welcome into episode 4 of season 2 of the Battle of Ontario Hockey Podcast. I'm Flem and he's Brooks, and we have a very special episode coming up for the BOOclub members today. Our first guest of season 2 is coming on later in the show. You'll get to sit down and hear Matt Goody. Matt was he's a little local legend here. He played for the Trenton Sting, had a 6-year pro career. He's a little bit of a Netflix star now too, right, Brokey, with his appearance in the Danbury Trashers movie. Is that how you call them, the Trashers? It's so weird saying the Thrashers and the Trashers. Fuck, did you hear the story about them where the NHL sued them for the name rights? And then the team said, what'd they say? They said, we'll play you for the name or something like that. And the NHL wouldn't go for it.
The Trashers said, let's play you, because, I mean, you imagine, like, first off, you know the NHL is going to say no, but imagine they did set up an exhibition game, how much publicity they would get out of that, right? Mm-hmm. And that team was already getting crazy amount of publicity. Obviously, I think they were sold out, and they were even talking about in the documentary about scalping tickets, which, you think of scalping tickets, playoff games or big games, big events for actual good money, right? You don't think of it as like a minor pro situation, right? It's like It's kind of comparing like scalping Bulls tickets or Belleville Senators tickets. Like, when was the last time that happened? Has it ever happened?
Yeah,
I mean, 99? Maybe in the Bulls in the 90s. Like that's it, right? So, which is kind of funny, and as you can see, guys, I've got my Trenton Sting jersey, but I mean, Matt would have wore something similar, so I thought I'd have it up there, and definitely brings back memories for me. I didn't play with Matt, but Matt played before, and I love hearing the stories. And I'm going to be honest, guys, this is early in the episode. If you're just starting to listen to us, if this isn't our best episode yet, this is the top 3.
Oh yeah,
it's Matt. Matt has some really crazy stories and funny stories, and I mean, and he didn't tell us to edit any of it, which I love. So good on him. He's been in the hockey world. He would be coming up to 40. Sorry, Matt, but from day one. 82, yeah. So not quite 40, but next year, buddy. I should have said that on the podcast. But anyways, no, it's the interview with him was awesome. I know we had a lot of fun. I'm really good friends with his brother Mark. So I asked Mark ahead of time, should I ask him anything? Is there anything else? Because obviously, you want to get a little bit of insight. And he gave us a couple tips, Flem?
Yeah.
That the one we wouldn't have thought of, and it's probably his best story. So I said, I think we all Mark there a drinky poo or two. So
I'd say so.
If you're listening, Goody, Mark and Matt, I guess we owe you guys a couple whiskeys. But anyways, guys, we won't get to that yet. We got a couple things first we want to talk about. It's been a little bit of a struggle for both of our teams. I mean, my team is still in a building. I'm not going to call it a rebuild because the re's done, but the building's there. And I was actually at the game on Saturday. But before I get into that with my Senators, let's talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs and their struggles so far this season. Other than last night, I guess they did come back and win.
Yep.
Your show there, Joe.
Well, you know what, Brokey? So if we would have done this little segment earlier in the week, like we were kind of talking about, so we were planning on coming on, I think even Sunday or Monday, but you blew your voice out at the Senators game, just cheering for those refs because they were so great, right? Like, bravo, need an encore there. So we delayed the podcast a little bit, so I'm not as riled up as I could be, but man, like we were texting Saturday night when they lost the Penguins, like did they lose 7-1 or 8-1, and I was fucking borderline coming unglued, man. Like I'd had enough. I'd seen enough. Like and it's been beaten to death now. So like it kind of feels like old news, but no Crosby, no Malkin, no Letang, no Carter, no Rust. Like, man, the Penguins literally practically fielded an AHL lineup.
Who else do they have?
Like,
yeah, like fucking who? That's their best 5 players.
Kasperi Kapanen, like he's like fucking your number one center.
Where did
like,
he used to play?
It's exactly what I mean. Like fucking the Leafs trade him man, like just to get blown out in a game like that where you start Campbell, you got Matthews back, and to just shit the bed like that is completely unacceptable. And it made me kind of really look at the team and just kind of look at the direction they're going. And it made me think that they're just not good enough. And I mean that outside of the big, 4 or 5 guys, like outside of Tavares, Matthews, Marner, right? Like I'm not saying they've been playing great or anything, but the rest of the team is so poor and just so average that when the big guys aren't going, there's no way the rest of the team's going to carry them and get them over that hump, right? So like on a day like that where Matthews doesn't show up, Marner's not there, you're not getting any secondary scoring from your fucking third or fourth line. Like Pierre Engvall's got no offensive instinct left in his body. Like Mikheyev's hurt. He's not a goal scorer anyway, but I just mean, it really brought me back to Dubas. This is the whole point. I know I was going on about this last year, and for the first couple of years, I thought Dubas was doing a good job. I mean, he inherited a bad cap situation, but coming in as a guy that was supposed to be an analytics darling, and it was supposed to be able to find guys, supposed to find diamonds in the rough, I could say. That's kind of what Dubas was talking about, where he said I'm going to pay the high-end guys, but I'll find these guys, like kind of like the Mason Raymonds of like 5 or 6 years for Leaf. Guys you sign for minimum, come in and score 30 goals, see you later. You have a good year. Michael Grabner, another example, not a Dubas guy he signed, but Dubas has just not picked up any of those guys to fill the depth spot. So, I mean, he's brought in Kerfoot. He's a borderline dud. He's brought in Mikheyev. He can't score. Simmons isn't doing very much. The guys he's brought in, I'm just going to kind of go over here. So his first UFA signing's Tavares. I mean, that's kind of I guess the jury's out on that team, a good signing or not. But I mean, at the time, it is what it is. He's brought in like
Tavares is not a good signing. You can't pay that guy $11 million. He's not worth it.
I don't want to talk about
what he's saying.
Right now,
He's not proved that he's a good captain either. That's all I'm saying.
I'll go with that. So he's brought in guys like D'Agostino, Nick Shore, Pontus Auberg. Like he's brought in all these guys to fill in like secondary scoring roles, and they all shit the bed. He does not find any good quality NHL players. He finds guys that are borderline replaceable. Like you can replace them with a guy from the AHL. Speaking of the AHL, there's no upward pressure from the AHL right now. The Leafs have no prospects in the system. No one's pushing those guys on the third and fourth line to be better because no one's on the verge of being called up in Toronto. Like there's no depth pushing through that system. And I blame that on Dubas. And I don't really give a fuck about the flat cap anymore or what's going on. He has not found anybody to come in and help the core. So when you bring in a guy like Mikheyev, you think, oh, it's all fine. He's bringing in all these Russians that are supposed to come in and score 20 goals. Well, they're all the exact same player. So if they disappoint, they come in and score 10 goals and they can't shoot. It's just presenting problems. Like all these guys, I'm sure they have such great stats, Brokey. Like, I'm sure they have good courses and all this, but that's not how the game of hockey works. Like you can be a contributing player for 95% of the time, but if you shit the bed in those 5% of those big moments, you're not a valuable contributor to the team for me. So for Dubas to be a guy that's supposed to be coming out, being an analytics guy and find diamonds in the rough, he's found nothing. The bottom half of that team is absolute dog shit. And I'm very scared for how this season's going to play out when the big boys aren't going, because when Jason Spezza's your 4th or 5th best player on your team, nothing against Jason Spezza. He's playing unreal, like lights out. You've got a problem. The guys came in at league minimum. He only because he wants to be here. I mean, it's not looking good for Leafs, and I'm really not happy with Dubas, and I'm not happy with Keefe. I don't know if Keefe's the man for the job. I'm sure he's a great regular season coach, but the way they're playing right now, they're not playing a playoff style hockey, and I don't see how that's going to change going into the playoffs.
So, as a Spit and Chicklets podcast, I'm going to bring them up. I was watching it today, and it was one of their recent episodes.
Our number one competitors.
You know what? They're number one competitors. No, I just think it's another take on it, right? And it made me actually think like this guy. You know what he said? And this is gonna. It's good. You guys probably watch it too, but he says, you know what the Leafs and the Sabres have in common this year? They have the same percentage to win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
And that's his predicament.
Yeah.
But if you think of it, are the Leafs in a better spot to win the Cup than they have in the last 3 years?
No.
To me, they're in a worse fucking spot. And I know I brought it up, and how do you not bring it up? Look at fucking Hyman.
They're
lost your best
fucking
player.
year. Every year.
Goals. You got nothing. Like the way that team is established is trash.
Yeah.
It's fucking trash. And one guy
one guy is responsible for that. You know who it is? Shanahan. What the fuck was Lou Lamoriello or Hunter?
Yep.
Why weren't they GM? Because he wanted this young guy, this analytics guy, and guess what? It hasn't worked. And unless some miracle comes down and the Leafs get some miracle this year, they're fucked, period. Because it ain't coming again next year, because what's going to happen again? You still got the same cap. I mean, okay, you lose a little bit of guys on the cap, but you got to replace them. And who are you replacing them with?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a free agent. Well, all these free agents, you're competing with all these other teams,
but
who have to overpay for them.
He hasn't signed a good free agent anyway. Like, even the guy he gets for a league minimum, no one's worked out. Even the guy he brings in from the KHL, no one's worked out. Like, I don't care if a guy comes in and scores 15 goals. That's not good enough. There are so many people grinding out in minor hockey that could probably, in AHL, could probably come in and score 15 goals just by standing in front of the net. Like, Hyman wasn't that great skill of a guy, but he'd stick his nose in places where other people didn't want to go, and he'd score some goals. That's all you have to do. The other guys Dubas are bringing in aren't willing to do that, and that's just the problem to me. So, I don't know, man. It's like the analytics thing. I always keep thinking back to Jake Gardiner. Like, do you remember him with Toronto? It was kind of like, It was kind of like 4 or 5 years where, man, there are moments, and so Gardner's like an analytics darling. Like, he's got unreal course. Like, he always had the puck. He never loses the puck. But you know what? It doesn't matter, because in that, say 95% of the time, he was, he's a good, solid player. On those 5% of the times where he's not, he's letting a goal in. Like, so it doesn't matter if he's generating scoring chances and he's putting you in a good spot. If you're not capitalizing and they come back the other way and score, that's a minus. I don't care what his fucking Corsi says at the end of the day. Like Gardner's in the year they lose to Boston in Game 7. Gardner has a pretty good playoff, all things considered, but you could see the writing on the wall for the last 4 years. Like, he's not willing to do the little things that you need to do to win a game. And he goes -5 in Game 7. He's not willing to step up and even just edge a guy out along the boards. Like, you just need to do the little things sometimes that aren't measured in stats. And that's why I'm not like a true believer in the stat thing right now. It's kind of like life. Like, life's kind of it goes in moments, right? Like, you could be the best person on the planet for 99.9% of the time, but if you fuck up in that 0.1% and it's a big enough fuck up, it ruins you, right? Like, there's some things you can't come back from. And that's just the problem with the Leafs and the guy he's got. I'm sure, you got a nice bunch of passengers sitting there on the bus, but at the end of the day, they don't do anything for you. They're just seat fillers. They're not guys that are making a difference, and that's the problem. When the big guys aren't going, you can't fall back on those other guys. Like, look at Tampa Bay. They've had the best third line in the league for the last 2 years, 2 Stanley Cups in a row, because they have depth. When someone goes down, someone's willing to step up, like a Yanni Gord, Barclay Goodrow, Blake Coleman. That's not happening in Toronto. When Tavares goes down, no one steps up. No one's ready to fill that void. So that's just my thought on Leafs right now. I'm borderline sick of it, and I was a Dubas believer until they lost last year, and I think I'm off the Dubas bandwagon now. I don't see enough positive things that he's done. Like, the Tavares is a no-brainer. Like, every GM in the league, if John Tavares says, I want to come to Toronto, you're going to try to sign him. Like, I don't really give Dubas any credit for that. I mean, it fell into his lap, right? Like, he came into the GM. That was there for him. Outside of that, he's made a couple deals for Muzzin and such, but I mean, not good enough. You've had your time now. You had a team that was borderline ready to win the cup when you took over, and they're further away from that today than they were 3 years ago. They were a better team with Lamoriello in charge. That's all there is to it.
I don't even know if you could even say that. I mean, I know you're sticking to it, but how could you even say that Tavares signing is a good signing? I get it, but knowing you got to pay these other fucking guys, there's only so much money to go around. So if you want to sign Tavares, you got to think, maybe I got to get rid of one of my other top guys, and he's going to replace one of them. Because having that many top guys and high heavy, or what's the word? Top heavy.
Top heavy, yeah.
It doesn't work. And so I get what you're saying. It's a guy coming out, but I think he should have went and thought, okay, if I'm getting Tavares and I know I got to pay Marner, and that's what's got to happen the last 2 years. Get rid of one of them. It's the only way around this. You're not going to win. And nothing against these players, because they're all really good players. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a huge Tavares fan now, but he's still a phenomenal player. Yeah. I just don't think he's worth $11 million. And Marner is the same thing. I think when that guy is on, he's phenomenal. Tons of skill. Playoffs, he hides, and I don't think he's worth $11 million. Matthews,
I don't think he hides. I think he gets pushed off the puck, and I don't think he hides necessarily. But sorry, go on.
Well, Sorry, and maybe that was the wrong wording.
Yeah.
Nylander is actually starting. Nylander is the only one that's really improving in my mind. He had a decent playoffs last year, and he's had a decent start this year. He scored the overtime winning goal last night. He's had an okay start, and he's only at 6'8" or 6'9", whatever it is. For me, that's a good contract now. I think that's one thing Dubas has done well.
Agreed.
But I think the Marner one didn't work out. And if Matthews is going to put up 50, 60 goals, his works out too. But, you can't have all those top heavy guys because there's no room for the rest of the team. You have to remember, this is a fucking team game. It's not who can score the most goals or who can have the most points. That means shit. Look at Edmonton the last 3 years.
Yeah.
They got the two of the top guys in the league and they can't win a fucking playoff round.
Well,
it's simple.
Hopefully
that changes. They brought more guys in Hyman and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But, at the end of the day, you got to look at these teams. They're spreading it out. Tampa Bay got a little lucky with the way their cap situation worked out, which is what it is. And it seems like it might happen again this year. Pittsburgh's always gotten guys with depth when they won. That's just how it is. Washington, when they won. Look at all the teams that won. And like you say, especially their third line, and even their fourth line, but I really pull on the third line how important they are.
Yeah.
Look at a team like the Islanders. The Islanders are one of the they've won 6 rounds. I know I've said this 100 times since Tavares has been gone, but they have so much depth. So maybe not signing him, they're allowed to spend more money on other players, and they've gotten better depth guys.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I agree.
You know what I mean? So the only way Toronto's getting around this is if one of those players gets traded, 100%, they will not win with the team they have. And Dubas isn't going to do it. He doesn't have the fucking balls to do it, or to do maybe whatever. I don't know. It's the stats bullshit. Dubas should be fired. As far as I'm concerned, Shanahan should be fired. They all should be fired because they've all failed. And it's been 3 or 4 years. And what are you going to do? Wait till next summer and then say, we'll get him again. It just keeps going on and on and on.
It's the circle right now
with Matthews' contract. There's another one. Matthews' contract. We talked about this last podcast. Hold on, but I'm almost done. Matthews' contract. And that's all I thought about since the last podcast, to be honest, because I didn't realize how fucking stupid it was. That's got to be one of the worst contracts. Not what he's paying him, but the time frame. He's literally, if it was 4 years, at least you're going to get a minimum of another year.
Yeah.
But you're probably going to try to sign him longer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of that contract, when it ends, if he doesn't sign him, he's going somewhere else.
Yeah, no, that's a complete failure too. And the timing of the contracts. And just I want to say, I don't agree necessarily, if they get rid of Marner, that they'll be a better team now. Because if it's to say Marner's making 10.5, you instantly need to find a guy to play on the first line. You don't have another first line winger. So you need to find a guy that goes and makes at least 7. And then you have $3 million left. Who are you going to get for $3 million that's really going to bridge the gap? Man,
I think
you need more than that.
I think you can get 2 decent players.
I think you can get 2 decent players. I think they need more than 2 decent players, though. I think they need 5. Man, they need 5 or 6.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Oh, no.
I'm saying it's got to be the first step.
Yeah.
I'm not saying get rid of Marner, they're going to win the cup. And this isn't against Marner or Nylander. I'm just saying that's one step that has to be made for them to do anything moving forward. That's all I'm saying.
You know how you find guys to do that? Is you find good young players on entry-level deals to come in and fill those spots. Dubas hasn't done that. He's drafted dog shit players. His best draft pick is Nick Robertson, who has been the team's best prospect for 3 years, and he's played all of 10 minutes in the NHL. He's not pushing up.
What's the deal with him anyway?
He got hurt again. I think he hurt his knee again this preseason. So I genuinely don't think he made the team out of camp though. And you know what? It's a very makeable team. If you can't beat Pierre Engvall out for a spot on the fourth line, there's something wrong with that because Engvall's. I'm not saying he's even bad, but there's just no upside to him.
I call him.
What's that?
I said I call him Draft. I don't know. He's got the longest neck in the league.
Yeah. Yeah, but there's no upside to it. You've got a good fourth line player. Maybe a guy that can be your 5th or 6th penalty killer and play some good defensive minutes. I don't want good defensive minutes. I want someone to put the puck in the fucking net that's on the 3rd or 4th line. That's all I want. And you know what? I would love for Marner to take a shot at it too, for fuck's sakes. The guy's gonna get paid $10 million, put up 10 goals, gonna drive me fucking crazy this year. But that's the problem with the Marner deal. He makes goal scorer money. And he's not a goal scorer. If you make $10, $11 million, you need to be putting up. You don't need to be putting up 30. You need to be a 40 fucking goal scorer, and he ain't going to be half that. So that's where I stand on that. So I don't even hate I don't hate Marner. I don't like the Marner contract because he's not going to put up enough goals to merit that. And I think we knew that at the time too. Just everyone's kind of enamored with him because he's coming off a couple of good years. But assists don't pay the bills anymore. You need to be a goal scorer. That's the way I see it.
Okay, so here's where we're going to get with this, guys. All of our listeners out there.
The millions.
I'm going to ask Fleming. The millions and millions of Brooks fans. Okay. If you didn't get that, you're too young. Anyways, what was I going to say? Okay, I got one question for you, Fleming. Dubas gets fired tomorrow. Shanahan calls up Brendan Fleming. I want you to be the GM for the Leafs.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Oh, well, I go out and
piss yourself.
It's so hard right now. You've got to find a way to add more depth. So if the only way to do that is to trade Marner and to get some prospects back and just, find someone that can, for $5 million that can play on the first line and then find 2 or 3 more guys to fill in, that's got to be what you do. You need to you need to have some internal competition where you have some guys coming up through the system and you have some guys pushing for those 3rd and 4th line spots and the 2nd line spots. So they need more depth. I don't know how you go and get more depth, but you got to find a way. And if Marner has to be the guy that bites the bullet for it, then you got to pull the trigger on it. And that's not even me hating on Mitch Marner. It just seems like it's the only thing to do. Tavares isn't going anywhere. Tavares has no move clause. They're not moving him. You can't trade Matthews. You need Austin Matthews. He's the lifeblood of your team. If you lose Matthews in 3 years, you're pretty much fucked. So, I mean, the only thing to do in my mind right now is to trade Marner for, whatever, the most you can get out of him. Hope 1 or 2 of those prospects turn out to be Josh Norris and Tim Stützle. And then, you have some value contracts for 3 or 5 years. That's the way, I don't know. That's honestly the way I see it right now.
Well, I just thought of one because they keep bringing it up in Ottawa, the fans do and whatnot. But Claude Giroux is on his way out of Philly, by the sounds of it. What about somebody like him? What if you could get Claude Giroux and maybe a couple younger guys for a Marner? I don't even know if it would happen. It's just a tip of my tongue. Then you got maybe some guys that can move in, 2 guys that can move in the lineup. Yeah. Maybe that's a move they can make, but then again, they got to try and sign him. What is he going to? I don't even know if it would go. Just something I thought of.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think when you trade Marner, you got to get someone that can come in and play on the first line right away. And then you need 2 other pieces that can come that are going to be in the NHL within the next year. Like, you need a Brandstrom at the time. I say Brandstrom because he was a very high-end prospect when the Stone deal went down, right? Like, you need a guy who has the opportunity to push the lineup right now, but definitely within the next year or 2. And to not just be like a 3rd pairing defenseman or a 3rd line winger, like you just need to aim higher. Like all these guys he brings in are just depth players. And even on their best of days, they can't hold a top 6 line or 6 players' pants. You know what I mean? Like they're not good enough, man. That's just the bottom line. These guys they're bringing in, they're just average Joes, and you can't be average Joes in the NHL. You need to be the best of the best, and they've only got a few of those guys, and they don't have enough of them.
Yeah, for sure. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens. Obviously they won last night, but you got to remember, do you know who they played? They played the Chicago Blackhawks. Chicago Blackhawks were like 0-6-1 going into that game. And there was also a huge shitstorm going on outside of the rink, probably one of the biggest in NHL history as far as off-ice stuff. We're not going to get into that, guys. Enough sporting places are, but I'm just going to talk about how big of a shit show. They don't even have Patty Kane. So, it was the must win for both, and Toronto ended up getting it done. Good for them. But it wasn't like they're playing the top team, right? Like that could have easily been a blowout for Toronto if they're on their game. So it'll be interesting to see how they do the next month. If they have a subpar 500 record, 15, 20 games in the season, then somebody's getting fired. Like without a doubt. And I don't think this is on Keith personally. Again, it's, I know Babcock, the same thing, the players, and they just haven't surrounded with a fucking winning team, I think. Good enough team to win games when things are going right. Good teams find a way to win games when things aren't going right.
It's like you said this last year.
Let me rephrase that. Good teams win games. Great teams find a way to win games when things aren't going right. Whether it's 2-1 and nothing's going right, and your first line's not scoring or they're out or whatever, and all of a sudden the third line gets 2 or 3 goals or whatever, it's 3rd and 4th line and you win 3-2. Right? That's what a great team does.
The way I see it is especially with the loss of Hyman and even Bogosian. I think Bogosian is a really big piece to lose. You've lost your way to win by plan B, right? So you can come out and Buck, what is wrong with the power play? If they don't score a power play goal in the next 2 games, I would fire every single person that has any input on the power play. You have Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner. Why is John Tavares still the net front presence guy? Like, for 2 fucking years, the Leafs haven't scored in the power play, and you have an $11 million guy just hanging in front of the net. He never touches the puck. Like, I don't know. I just don't get it. Like,
well, I agree with you. Like last year, did you see the progression of their power play? It was the biggest regression, in the whole league. They were unreal to start. At the end of the year, they were the worst power play team in the league.
You know why they were good at the start?
Last month of the season.
Do you remember at the start of the year, they were doing the 1A, 1B thing. So it would be like Matthews, Marner, and then like Simmons would go for the first power play unit. Then a minute later, you'd get Thornton, Nylander, and Hyman would come out, or whatever variation of that you got, right? And that was working. That was rolling very smoothly for them. I remember early in the year, they came out and put up like 7 power play goals in 3 games against Edmonton. And then they go back to this, let's put our best 5 players on the power play for a minute 50 every time. And fuck, they almost give up more shorthanded goals than they score power play goals. Like, it's ridiculous. I don't understand. I physically can't understand, like, someone just go and stand in front of the net and like just shoot it there. You have to be able to score a goal. Like, 3 guys go stand in front of the net, shoot it on the goalie, and just fucking hack and slash for 2 minutes until you score. Like, it'll go in. It'll work somehow. I just don't understand why they can't do it.
I'm not sure about your PowerPoint suggestions there.
Well,
just fucking give it, Jimmy. Put the fucking photo on. Let's go, coach. Let's go.
That's what Goody was telling us. And he'd get out there in the fucking power play and just fucking keep slashing, and he'd score a goal, half a point a game, bud. So you can score. You just got to be willing to do the things to score. Man, for so much talent, I don't get how their power play can't score. It's actually an embarrassment. It's actually infuriating. So if they don't score soon, like, I'm pretty sure they can. The power play coach last year, Manny Malhotra. Why can't you score on the power play? Like, change something. And I know they have made some adjustments. They moved Marner. Marner's kind of moved off like the point now, and he's kind of more down low, or at least it was earlier in the year. But it's still not working. Like, you got to find a different way. I think you got to get the puck in Tavares' hands a little more. He's probably the best playmaker outside of Marner that you have, but Marner's not. There's no shot with Marner. No one respects his shot, so you're just waiting for that slap pass all the time. Like, I remember when they were playing Washington 4 years ago, that slap pass from Marner from the top of the circle across the net over to Hyman or James Van Riendijk, who's always standing in front of the net, that worked because people still thought he would shoot. He's not shooting the puck anymore. No one's scared of it, right? So it kind of got like, even last year when they were playing Montreal in the playoffs, when Morgan Riley scored a goal, he practically scored him like a almost a borderline like flick shot, because he was coming down to 2-on-1, and Carey Price is playing the pass the whole way. Like, he's literally just waiting for the pass because Riley's got like 4 shots on net the whole year, and he like just duffs a shot and it goes in because he's playing the pass so much. So they're just being too cute. Just shoot the puck on net. Shoot the puck. Go to the net.
Shoot the puck. Okay, so are you ready to talk about the better team in Ontario?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm done with the Leafs right now. Yeah, let's talk about the Battle Senators.
We'll get back to the Leafs next week. We'll see if they make any improvements, especially on their power play, and if they just started fucking whacking and scoring. But anyways, yeah. So I was at the Ottawa Senators game on Saturday. It was actually an awesome time. I just wanted to go to a game. I plan on doing some traveling here soon and doing the podcast maybe on the road a bit, but. As anybody likes to know, I do like to travel a bit. So I'm looking to do that. And I just thought, I want to get to a Sens game, a hockey game, obviously. I haven't been to a live game in a year and a half, like most of us, right, with COVID and everything. So got some tickets. And I said to my wife, should we bring Brady? I have a 1.5-year-old son. And I'm like, the kid's crazy. He's running everywhere. And she's like, no, we'll bring him. We don't have to pay for his ticket. If he starts going crazy or running or whatever, I'll deal with it. You can watch the game. So I'm like, all right. Anyways, so then like 2 days before, I thought of it. I'm like, shit, Brady is my son's name. And Brady Tkachuk just signed his big deal. It's his second game back since his 7-year contract. And he's actually my wife's favorite player. Now, Brady wasn't named after Brady, anything like that, but it was just kind of cool. So I'm like, why don't you do up a sign? We'll go for warm up and, tell him it's his first NHL game. And we'll try and get a puck from Brady Tkachuk, right? And I'm thinking, we'll try it. Well, anyways, we ended up getting a fucking puck from Brady Tkachuk, which was, I thought, the coolest thing, So we wrote a sign, hey, Brady, my name is Brady too. It's my first NHL game. So, we actually have a photo where it looks like he's looking.
Don't take any credit for that sign, because there was no spelling mistakes in that sign. That's not fucking your sign.
No, I just told her what to say.
Yeah.
But there's actually a photo where it looks like he's like looking at our sign. So during warm-up, guys are kind of throwing a couple pucks over. Shabbat threw one or two, and North threw one, and not right at us. We're at the glass, right? And I'm holding Brady up, and then at the end he brings over 3 pucks. And it was cool. He gives 1 or 2, and then he's looking at us, and I'm going, like, give it to Brady. Like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, it gives me like the smallest nod and throws it to me. So I don't know. It was just cool. Anybody that has kids, it was a really cool parenting moment, especially with the connection with the names, I guess, me being a big Sens fan. So I'm pretty excited for that puck, even though it's just a warm-up puck. It actually says the name, everything on it. When they played. So it's actually really, really cool. So that's one good memory, I think, that I'll always be able to tell with him, and that's why we play these sports, and that's why we're trying to get more kids involved in sports with pay it forward sports. It's just memories like that, right? So that was awesome. So I was pretty fired up for the game, as you can imagine. First period, we scored within the first minute. So my fist was just pumping. Stützle to Paul, and Paulie went roof. It was awesome. And then the rest of the game, Kachuk fought. Like, I'm fucking like, yes, like, this is awesome. We're up 2-0. And then we're up 2-0. We take a penalty with like 6 minutes left. This is where it went from just being the greatest day to the next fucking part sucked. Let's put it that way. So we took a penalty. It was an iffy penalty. You want to call it, whatever, call it. They scored a beautiful goal. Beautiful goal. It was a cross ice a couple times, back of the net. Boom. Murray didn't have a chance. Murray's playing awesome. And so at the same time, I forget the guy's name on New York. Anyways, he kind of bumped Murray because his head was out.
Kreider.
And we didn't know. So Murray left. That's right. Yeah. And Kreider. Yeah. And so we're all like, what, has Murray hurt again? But I guess he kind of got bumped in the head, which is understandable after seeing it. So Murray's gone with the last 5.5 minutes left in the game. So we're like, oh, shit. You can bring in a cold goalie, and he sat there for 3 hours. Anyways, it is what it is. So the next play or two, we're going down. Jimmy gets the puck, chips it around the defenseman, and the defenseman sticks the stick in between his legs. Jimmy's gone on a 2-on-1. It's clear as day. Watch the video, guys. Clear as fucking day. I know Fleming was chirping me at the start. So we're thinking, okay, we're up 2-1. There's 5 minutes left or whatever. They're going to give us a power play, like 4 or 5. There might even only 4 minutes left. Pretty much the game's over. They call a trip and a dive. I fucking lost it. That's probably why we couldn't do the podcast Monday or Tuesday. I had no voice. It wasn't just me, man. It was a fucking horrible call. And I was like you on Saturday. I was really worked up. I was fucking pissed off. We're trying to enjoy the night in Ottawa, and we did, but it just baffles me how somebody that's controlling a game where these guys, there's $80 million, there's probably close to $100 million, including all the off-ice stuff, just in the players for this game that are making it that year. And you're making calls like that. Like, think about the big picture. Like, what if this is the Stanley Cup final and that happens? Like, it's just bullshit as far as I'm concerned. And I know a lot of the refs out there, and I got ref buddies. They probably just hate what I'm going to say, but I think refs need to have discipline for this shit. And you never hear about it. You hear about a player that was, he was sat because he fucked up. He sat the next game or whatever happened, or didn't play the period. It's discipline, and that's the way life works. If you don't have discipline, then guess what? You're never going to learn. But if they were at the end of the day, and Fleming messaged me the next day or whatever, and you said, "Holy shit, that call was fucking horrible." It was
so bad. It was so bad. Yeah,
it was awful. And it's like, well, maybe he dove. No, nobody dies when they're going on a 2-on-1. So when Stützle got up, the guy's stick is still between his legs.
Yeah,
like he didn't dive. It was a trip. Like, anyways, they scored on it on the 4-on-4, which should have been our power play, and then they scored with like 30 seconds left to tip in. That Forsberg didn't have a chance on. It was a collapse. They still shouldn't have let it happen, Ottawa. You'd still only 4-on-4. You're still even. So they got to learn as a team. I'm not necessarily blaming the game that happened on that, but we talked about this last year in one of our podcasts, that one decision by a referee can change the entire outlook of a game, and that one did 100%. And maybe that team's so young that they allowed it to change it, but they shouldn't. But at the end of the day, my thinking, I have two things with this. How the fuck can it be a trip and a dive? You either fucking tripped him or you didn't. If you didn't trip him and he fucking dove, then it's a dive. If you tripped him, then it's not a dive. That I just don't get. I'm baffled by. And the second part of this is, why is that? And maybe he was. And why can't we find out about it then? That ref disciplined. Like, that ref should be suspended for a week. He should be sent down to the AHL. Something should happen. He should not be reffing the next night or whenever he refs again. Because as far as I'm concerned, that's a huge fuck up, and it changed the whole outlook on that game. And we're talking almost $100 million that these organizations together are making. They're worth billions together. It's a fucking joke. If you're going to ref at that level, as far as I'm concerned, those mistakes can't happen, especially that time of the game, and especially that blatant. There's going to be mistakes, guys. Hey, I get it. Refs aren't perfect, and it's funny. I just thought of something with Matt Goody last night.
I was just waiting to say that line when you were done this.
You know the lines? Do you have it in your head?
Am I hard on refs? Yes. Do they deserve it? You're fucking right.
So Matt says that in the podcast coming up, but I laughed because I was like, holy fuck, I feel the same way. Sorry, referees, fans. But as far as I'm concerned, like, something needs to be done about that. That's bullshit. And that's not all that. Like, these calls sometimes happen all the time, but how do they get better if you don't, like, to me, that's just blatant. I can't, it irritates. And when you got 20,000 people, no, it wasn't 20,000, 12,000, but yelling, you suck, ref, and all this bullshit, like, obviously you fucked up. Like, I don't know. It just pissed me off. But having said that, I'm going to move forward. The Sens are going to be fun to watch the next 5 to 7 years, because I'll tell you, they were awesome to watch. I love the skill level. I love the energy they bring. I love the hitting. There was fights. There's 2 fights. I just love it. I wanted to go Monday night. I couldn't find anybody to go with. It's tough. It's 2.5 hours away. I was going to go. I said to Billy, like, Billy McKay, my other good buddy, so let's get $30 tickets and move up. Like, fuck. Anyways, it's great. It was awesome to be, other than the last 5 minutes, it was awesome, absolutely awesome to be back in an arena. Mm-hmm. I felt safe. Everybody wears their masks. It was just phenomenal. If you haven't been back in an arena since COVID, go to a game. I don't care if it's in Ottawa, Toronto, and friggin' Florida. It's Belleville. Just Belleville. Go see the Belleville Centers. I know I'm hoping to go tomorrow. The Belleville Centers won last night. So it's just go out and enjoy life, get to games. It feels good to be doing something like that again. But anyways, that's where I'm at with my Sens. I can't wait to watch them the rest of the year. Hopefully they pick it up. Right now they're 2-4, I believe. They need to step it up, but obviously they should probably be 3-3. And I think they can have a decent year. I don't think they're going to make playoffs, but I don't think they're going to be that far out.
And I just want to kind of reiterate the point about just getting out to see games, right? Like, I went to the Leafs Senders game the Saturday before you went to Senders Rangers, and I felt there was 19,000 people there. I felt completely safe. Like, everyone's wearing their masks, everyone's having a good time. You're socially distant when you can, but I mean, you're just back out and you're enjoying life. Like, even at our Pay It Forward Sports 3-on-3 tournament, you get together with, I don't know how many people, 100, 120 guys, sit not all at the same time, but in a building, and you just back out with your people, with your friends, and you're socializing with the group of people you like to hang around with, and just get back out and enjoy life. Like, there's so much more to enjoy than just kind of sitting around your house and watching everything on TV, right? Like, I'd become accustomed to watching things on TV, like sporting events, but man, there's nothing like it being there live, right? Just kind of feeling the emotion of the crowd. And like when when everyone's getting on the ref, like, it just fires you up. It gets you going. Like, you didn't have a voice for 3 days. Like, you got a story for the next couple of weeks. Like, just get out, enjoy life, guys. Just see the world for what it is. It's fun out there, man. So get out, go and have a good time.
I got a story for 20 years, guys. Honestly, I do. I'm going to be telling that story for 20 years. My son getting a puck from Brady Tkachuk.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Kind of rhymes too. My son Brady got a puck from Brady Tkachuk. There's a connection there with the names and my wife's favorite player and all that. So, and that's what it's about. Sports is connecting with the players and being able to go down there. And I know some kids, when I was a kid, you probably did this too. When the Bulls are around, they used to have breakfast with the Bulls, things like that. And that's what it's about too. You getting to go out and meeting the players. And I think that's part of the reason why we do these podcasts, especially the hockey one, is to be able to show people and have them connect with the players we're interviewing, right? And tell stories, and it connects and it probably makes them think of stories that they had too. So I know the Matt Goody one's just it was a phenomenal thing, and I love how we already thought about the one ref comment, because I absolutely loved it. I was like, that's me. So so where are we at next, buddy?
I didn't have too much more to talk about. Did you want to jump into Goody right away, or did you have anything else you want to go on about?
I did have one more thing, and I wanted Don Cherry here for a minute.
Okay.
One thing that has been going around, and I think the Leafs are probably the biggest with it. as far as finding out about it. I don't know how many other teams around the league do it, but Don Cherry for years. And I'm a big supporter of Don Cherry. Does he say all the right things? No, he doesn't. But at the end of the day, the guy has the biggest heart in Canada for hockey and for our soldiers, and you can't turn that away. So, and that's all I'm going to say about him. But he would always talk about players and show them coming to the rink and how sharp they looked. And kids, whether they're playing AAA, minor hockey, whatever it is, they're together and how sharp they look. And to me, growing up playing hockey, and you did it too, and probably a lot of our listeners did it, whether you're wearing a tracksuit, but I always like to wear the suit, especially home games, maybe tracksuit away game for kids. But to me, that means so much. And when I hear this stuff about Matthews and other players wanting to express themselves when coming to the NHL rink, that is the biggest crock of bullshit I've ever heard in my fucking life. Mm-hmm. You're sitting there, you're followed anywhere you go. If you go to a sports bar, there's going to be a photo taken of you, maybe a video. Mm-hmm. You go to the movies, whatever. Express yourself there. Mm-hmm. When you come to the rink, you fucking look good, you look sharp, and you look like you're ready to play, period. And you're showing your teammates, you're showing everybody around you, you're showing the fans, you're showing the organization, and you're showing minor hockey kids how important it is to look good, to feel good, to act professional when you come to the rink. And I hear this other sports and basketball doesn't do it. As far as I'm concerned, this is nothing against basketball guys, but when basketball players and other sports do it too, basketball people seem to point out, they look like fucking bums. When they come and they got baggy clothes and a hat like this, you're going to the rink, you look like shit. Period. That's how I feel. You look like a pile of shit. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's so important. And I haven't coached in a few years, but if I ever coach again and that rule comes around, I'll have my own rule. You won't play. And sometimes teams, especially minor hockey, they, like you say, they have tracksuits. Well, that's a little bit acceptable if it's on road trips and stuff like that. I don't mind, especially minor hockey, right? But I mean, if we're talking pros and stuff, man, wear a suit. Yeah. Wear a suit. I think that's the biggest garbage play in the world. And it actually makes me hate Matthews more.
But why do you hate Matthews about it, though? Why aren't you mad at
Dubas? Matthews is the wrong guy picking on. I
that's think that's where the rule, if your boss says you can come to work wherever you want, that's not so much on you. That rule's coming from up top. That rule's coming from Dubas, from Shanahan, from MLSE. They've given them the green light to go out and do what they want. You know what? You've won 2 fucking games all year. How about you dress up like James fucking Bond in like a 007 suit and come to the ring? Because you need something different. Like, you can't be dressing up in your little, I don't even know, like a friggin' mismatched
barbecue outfit.
Yeah, they got like 8 different colors on. Like, man, I don't know. I just remember playing hockey, and I always remember even going to like baseball games. Like, I used to like even looking nice going to like our baseball games when you were younger. Like, do you remember ever going to like a tournament when you'd have like a game on Friday, but you'd go to school for the morning, but you'd wear your nice clothes to school, right? Like, it just makes you feel special kind of thing, right? Like, I don't know. That's something I always remember, just kind of going to school when, you're going to a tournament, you're leaving at fucking 11 or 12. You put your little clip-on tie on, your nice shirt, your nice pants. And, everyone's like, oh, what are you doing? I'm going to play hockey. And it gives the hockey players such a good reputation and just makes them feel different about themselves in a way that's positive. And I don't know. I think I'm not even like a big stickler on like all the rules. Like, I thought Lamorello was a little overboard, like the no facial hair and stuff, but where are you going to draw a line in the sand? Like, if you're letting them show up like that, like some guys are wearing literal like white t-shirts, like just an undershirt and then like a sports jacket. Like, it just looks so trashy. Like, it doesn't look professional at all. Austin Matthews, I think your deal is for like $95 million. Like, buy a tie, dog. I don't know what to fucking say about it. Like, man, the rule.
Buy a Bond, James Bond.
I don't get the rule. I don't get the rule. Like, I don't know. I think that's a Dubas problem. And that's someone that's trying to be friends with these guys when they need something else. They need someone to be a little more disciplinary. Like, did you see Dubas in the All Access where he's talking to guys before, like, all playoffs? He's like, you're not playing bad. You just need to do this. And, just try a little harder. Like, maybe you need to take a different approach with these guys. Like, enough being friends and saying, like, I'm not going to trade you. I'm not going to do this. We're in this together. If you shit the bed Saturday night, I want someone like Brophy, one of Goody's coaches. Like, if you play the wrong movie on the bus, you're fucking getting traded. I've had enough of it. Like, some of these guys, they're just so coddled now. You have rattled, shake their cage a little bit, see how they react.
There's another good story he talks about. Well, you'll hear it soon, guys. But you know what, Fleming, you nailed it on the head there. And I think we just basically talked about this at the start of the episode, where it's all on Dubas and Shanahan and what they're allowing and what they've done with their team. And 100%, you know what, I'm blaming the wrong person. And it's, I don't know why I blame him. Sorry for that one. I read some things how he was one of the guys that won it. At the end of the day, if it's Lou Lamoriello in Dubas' position, there is a 0.0000 to a fucking million zeros that Matthews or anybody else on that team is showing up looking like a bum.
Yeah.
And tell me that doesn't go past that. That brings everything. That brings the way you come to the rink, into the room. You're just everything, man. Anybody that's played hockey, it means something. I know there's going to be the odd guy, I hate to dress up. Well, that's just you. The way it's just class. It's everything. It shows you're ready to go. It's
what you said earlier. It's discipline. If you don't have discipline, you're never going to learn. You know what? If you're letting them do that, you're letting so many things slide now. It's, I don't want to go on about the facial hair. That's just the only thing I can think of right now. But
Yeah, but I agree with you. Like, there has to be a line, and they're fucking crossing it. And how do we know what else Dubas is allowing them to get away with?
Yeah.
Right. How do we know that he's not allowing them out an hour or two later on game nights? Or not that these guys go apparently to play video games all day, but we don't know what else is going on, right? So at the end of the day, whatever he's doing and allowing all this shit, it's not fucking working.
Yeah. No, that's it. It's not working, and you need to pivot. Like, we've had it for 2.5, 3 years now. Enough's enough. We need to try a different approach. Like, you've lost to Montreal and Columbus in the last two playoffs, or I guess not even to playoffs in Columbus, in the the wild card round. If you can't get by Montreal and Columbus, you're not getting by any of the big teams. You're not getting by Washington. You're not getting by Pittsburgh, the Islanders, Boston, Tampa, maybe even Carolina. Like, at this rate right now, if the Leafs don't start playing better, and I'm not saying they're not going to start playing better, there's going to be a month where Austin Matthews pretty much carries the team and scores, 15 goals in a month, and they go on and they lose 1 or 2 games all month. He's going to carry them. Marner's going to get caught and carry them for 3 or 4 weeks. But if they keep playing like this when those two guys aren't on, they're in serious trouble of not making the playoff just because of how good the East is. Like, are they going to be able to beat Boston in the standings, Tampa Bay, Florida, Carolina? I don't know. I really don't.
I don't think they beat any of those teams this year.
Yeah,
Carolina. That was one thing we did touch on, and the top. The other thing that hurts the least is the 2 of the players that are gone are just fucking doing awesome. Hyman and Anderson. I mean, and I'm not like, well, the Hyman one I didn't like to lose him. I think you should have signed him and got rid of one of the other guys, but we'll save that for another episode. We'll see how he does the rest of the year. But anyways, one thing I'm not going to bring it up, but I'm going to just give you a taste because I'm betting it's going to happen again. Josh Brown for the Ottawa Senators had a horrible game the other night, and I just don't get how he's in the NHL, especially with Ottawa Senators. I understand it because he played for DJ, but we might as well wait because we know he's going to have a couple more shit games in the rest of the year. Sorry, I sound negative. And if Josh Brown, if you're listening, pick it up, man. You're just terrible. Anyways,
you're just terrible. But
well, it's just frustrating because honestly, I'm like, I'd love to see this guy in the AHL. I don't even know if he would succeed there. Like, it's just pathetic. It's so frustrating.
Right, let's pivot off people that are terrible at things like me and you, and let's transition to the good thing we've done in the last couple of days. So do you want to jump into the Goody interview, buddy?
Sounds good to me, bud.
All right. So, guys, here we go. This interview is actually sponsored by BIHC in Belleville and Rashot Home Hardware in Tweed. So these guys are proud sponsors of Pay It Forward Sports and BOOclub Sports, and we gave them the opportunity to be a part of the Goody interview. They jumped all over it. So, guys, if you're looking for any chiropractic needs, anything with concussions, tennis elbows, go see BIHC and Ben and his team, and also go check out Rashot Home Hardware in Tweed. For any of your home projects you got going on, these guys have the best prices and the best service around.
Before we get into that, I want to tell you guys one thing about BIHC because they're one of our main partners. This morning, in the last 3 days, I couldn't function between there. I couldn't go any farther. I threw my back out. Boom, look at the motion. Benny is the man. Ben at BIHC, he is the man. He's magic hands. But honestly, guys, I couldn't. I was stuck there. I couldn't go straight. Now I can bend everywhere, and that's just after one treatment. The guy's phenomenal. Thank you, Ben at BIHC. Thank you for being one of our partners. If you guys are injured, help, need hurt, all that stuff, go see Ben or one of his staff members at BIHC. But guys, enjoy this. Matt Goody, phenomenal interview, awesome stories, and we're wanting to have him on again.
Yeah, absolutely. So former Trenton Sting, Providence Bruin, played 6 years pro, and he was known to mix it up for a time or two. And like we said, he's a Netflix star now. So check him out on the new Netflix special. But here we go, guys. Matt Goody. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome on one of the toughest SOBs to ever come out of the Quinte area, a man who was center stage in one of the biggest junior hockey rivalries we've seen in our time. He played 6 years professional hockey, including a stint with the Providence Bruins in the AHL, and a man who welcomed the Danbury Trashers into the hockey world by pummeling their enforcer, Brad Wingfield, 3 times in their first ever game. Ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause to our first guest of season 2, Matt Goody. What's going on, buddy?
There's the clap, buddy. There's the clap.
Thanks, bud.
What's going on, bud?
Oh, those are some pretty stiff words, boys.
So what's new? You're coaching in Kingston now, eh?
Yeah. We moved up here about 4 years ago. Crystal, my girlfriend there, she's working at KGH, and we moved up here for her. So been enjoying it. We're living on a lake up here, doing a lot of fishing, and actually in the wintertime we get to skate on the lake here, which is fantastic. And I've been doing some hockey up here. Just been doing the minor hockey stuff here the last 2 or 3 years, and of course the junior C there not too long ago with Napanee as well. So,
well, that's pretty good. I didn't realize that you were living on the lake. That's kind of neat, then.
Yeah, as a kid I always bass fished a lot and got away from it because of hockey and all the other things, of course, with work and stuff. And now we fish probably 5-6 times a week. So we're on a great bass lake here. It's sweet.
Yeah, nothing better than you don't have to go out and, go home and be like, okay, let's get a boat or whatever and then go to the lake. Because, majority of the time that's just not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
If it does, it's not often. But when it's right in your backyard, it's like, hey, I'm home from work, whether it's a little early or whatever, let's go out. Like, that's awesome. So.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's a nice place to relax and kind of unwind and forget about all the bullshit of the week or the day, that's for sure. So
yeah, definitely good to unwind. So anyways, we've got maybe we'll bring up the big topic. So one thing Fleming didn't mention, but you're kind of a little bit of a Netflix star now, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
For 10 seconds, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it gave it a little bit of notoriety, I suppose. And it was, I gotta say, it was kind of funny. I got probably, I would say, next to 200 calls and text messages and from different players and guys I know and people I know all over the States and all over, Ontario, and friends and that. Just it was kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, that's a huge thing going on right now. I mean, every hockey lover, in North America, I guess, is kind of watched it, and I didn't even know anything about it, until it come out. I don't think a lot did. Obviously, you would have, because you were there and you played against them and everything like that. But it's definitely crazy. So maybe we'll just explain it. So they kind of messed up, I guess, is the best way to put it, right? From what I talked to you and your brother about it. So they talked about the opening game and how the guy called down. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but the guy called, what's his name, Fleming?
Brad Wingfield.
Pardon?
Brad Wingfield.
Yeah, no. The guy, when he called down the bench.
Jimmy.
Yeah. So he calls down the bench and says, I want you to fight off the hop. And they fight opening face-off, right, of their season. But as he's telling the story in the documentary, they're showing the clips of one of 3, I believe, and you'll get to the story here, of you guys fighting. And then, of course, you were a little bloody at the one part. So it's kind of deceiving because, they don't even get to tell your story. But that's what we're here for today. So I don't know. Do you want to – maybe you can, help the viewers out as to what actually happened with you. And what's the guy's name again? Wingfield?
Wingfield, yeah.
Yeah, Winger, he was a tough nut. But no, obviously, being in the minors there and being in the United League at that time, everybody was always talk about how they had the connections with the mafia and all the different things that went on with the goalie pads and the crazy trainer. Like, that guy was fucking nuts. Like, just a loon. Like what you see on on TV. Like he plays it up a bit, but he was just a fucking absolute loon. But yeah, I mean, I think the big thing was those fights, like that one in particular. But in that game we had 3 fights in the one game, and that was actually a Boxing Day game. And I think it was their second season or second or third season, I can't remember, but I was playing for Richmond at that time. I played them the year before, and I was playing in Port Huron in the same league. So, but those fights, especially on YouTube, I was surprised how many people have watched those fights over the years, and but it got a lot of notoriety on its own, and a lot of people viewed it anyways. And with a little, my nose got broken the second fight there, as you saw, and he caught me with one, missed my entire face, and cracked me with a thing, and just cracked my nose, and she was bleeding pretty good. I was so pissed off that I got caught, because I never got caught like that. So, but he was definitely a tough customer, and in those fights, actually, that was the year that I got my call to the American League, and I think I had 35 majors that year, and I was doing everything I could to get noticed. And obviously, with him being the guy who he was, and he played in Syracuse the year before, and he had some stints in the American League for quite some time and had a reputation. I knew I had to make a name for myself that way, and so I kept asking him. And the first fight I asked him, and Winger was a pretty good guy that way, and I know they pump him up a bit in the show, but he was respectful, as long as you were respectful with him, like anybody else. Like I was the same way. If someone did me wrong, they're gonna get her back, kind of thing. So in the second fight, of course, he wanted to go again, because I won the first fight, and he won the second. And I was pissed off, and I remember going in the penalty box in Danbury, and of course, you see in the video me kind of half smiling. I was fucking pissed, and I'd never had my nose broke before, and come from junior, I'd never really lost a fight either. I'd lost a couple, but nothing major. And I sat in the penalty box, and in pro, everybody, they had the guys with their suits on that open the doors with the big crest that at that time was the UHL, and I could feel the blood clot from my nose coming out my mouth, and I had no place to spit it, so I spit it on the floor in the penalty box. And I just remember the little old guy took a look. He started gagging. The play was going on. He opens the door, walks outside, gets out the other right while the play was going on. It was hilarious. So he said, "Fuck this! I'm out of here. I'm gonna get sick." And I started laughing. Winger goes, "Where are you going?" To the guy, and he says, "I'm out of here." And anyways, I looked over at Winger, and I said, "As soon as I get this bleeding stop," I said, "we're going again." He said, because we had to play the next night, and in Richmond, actually. And he said, "Well, we'll play tomorrow." And I said, No, we might. Hey, I don't get too many hat tricks. I said, "Let's make this a three and out." So he said, "All right, whatever." And so anyways, we ended up going again, and I had the gauze jammed up my nose. And if you watch it on YouTube, you can punch it up and watch all 3 fights. And then the third fight there, he kind of jarred me a bit in the start, and I was getting my footing, and then all of a sudden the blood started coming, and he just wanted to stop. So, which, whatever, it is what it is. And then he put on the show with the big belt swinging and all that stuff. And, it's all part of it, eh? But, and the next night, I think I fought Carlisle Lewis twice in Richmond the very next, which is also on YouTube too. So, yeah. So anyways, and I think about a week or 2 later, I got called up to the American League. So, and I spent the rest of the year up there. So in Providence.
Oh shit. So that ended up being quite the story then. So you were with Richmond then, you said?
Yeah, the River Dogs, at the time.
At the time. And so I got some notes, like I said, from your brother. So he said to ask you about John Brophy. I guess he coached with the Maple Leafs in the 90s, and he was your coach, I guess, at the time? Yeah,
so Brophy was quite a cat. I mean, at that time in Richmond, when I finally went, this was a year or 2 later, I went back to Richmond, and it was the SPHL at the time, and it's kind of just on my downward swing of my career, and I got there with Brophy, and he was quite a guy. He had one eye, and and he treated me fantastic. As far as coach is concerned, he loved the tough guys, the guys that played the type of role that I did. So as far as coaches, I mean, I got there, he put me on the first line, and I said, "Pardon?" I never played on the first line in my life, and
what am I doing at the top of the roster?
Yeah, and me getting like 20, 25 minutes a game in ice time, I didn't know what the hell to do, right? So, usually I was just doing 20, 25 minutes in penalties. So, but I think that year I ended up with an average of 15 minutes a game in penalties. So it was nuts. But I don't know. I ended up with a few points that year too. So. But anyways, he was quite a guy. Like, I could go on and on about stories with him. Actually, there was a book written about Brophy and his life last year, and there's a bit of they called me and wanted to hear some stories, and there's a few stories in there about some of the things that he would say, and he wouldn't say it now. Christ. I'd make a lot of people squeamish right now. Some of the things he used to say to us in the room, but I just one quick story I'll tell you about him. I remember we were in the playoffs and we had these two native kids from up in the Paw, Manitoba, and they were deathly afraid of him. And he had this sign made. He do these weird quirky things, but he had this sign made up, said, "Put a knife in their throat tonight, boys. And end this series," or whatever. And in the SPHL, this first series of the playoffs was best of 3. So we won the first game, and we were coming back home. So if we win tonight, the series is over. Well, he's got an actual like butcher knife jammed into this Bristol board. So, and I said to myself, I said, if we don't come out playing tonight, I said, that crazy fucker is going to stab somebody or hack them to bits. Like, he's fucking nuts. So, sure as shit, we come out, and I think we were down 3-0 in the first period. And I thought, holy fuck. I said to my captain at the time was Brian Goody. I said, Gouds, I said, listen, buddy, I said, we're going to have to make sure someone gets that fucking knife. Well, Brophy was already in there like a flash, and he was 74 at the time. Like, he was like, old as fuck, yeah. Anyways, and get in there, and he's got this fucking knife, and he's pacing, and he's got it just like like a guy who was going to murder somebody. And I look over, and I'm like, oh fuck, getting ready to tackle him before he stabs somebody. Anyways, he starts cutting off his tie, cutting off all the buttons off his shirt, and I'm going, what in the blue fuck? Anyways, he starts waving it in front of these native kids like this, and the one starts crying. Anyways, I start laughing. What the fuck? Finally, Gouds gets up and says, "Bro, this is insane!" Like, and Bro throws a knife down, and we get the knife from him, anyways. But yeah, we ended up losing that game. I think 5-3 or something like that. The two native kids, I don't think they finished the game. They were scared to death. But yeah, it was funny. He was quite a guy. Oh Jesus, I could go on for hours with stories. That guy, he was something else. I'll tell you.
Yeah, imagine that going on nowadays. Like, literally, just having it in the room, like you put. Like you said, put it in the bulletin board or whatever. Yeah. Oh, Jesus, you can't get away with anything close to that now. Oh, yeah. I couldn't imagine being in the room and the coach is ripping off his tie and like, what?
Well, Brophy was famous for his jet white hair. Like, if you look up Brophy in like for the Leafs and stuff like that, like his hair was like white. And anyways, we go in for the playoff series, and I come in, and I was always usually the first one at the rink. So I'd be there 2-3 hours, 4 hours early, depending on the situation. He'd be there already. And I come in this particular time, and he's got his head shaved into a mohawk and his white hair, but he took like, I don't know, bingo dabbers or something and streaked it all blue. And it was running down his face and just off the charts. And then the other actually, the best story about him, I have to tell this one. So what he used to do, so in Richmond we had 2 rooms. So one where we would get our stuff, like our dress clothes off, and then we had our dressing room. So he would always see me, and he'd go around the other side, and he'd go and he'd either cut my damn ties or tie my shirts in knots, and he'd just be an asshole to me all the time. So some of these ties are expensive, like, you know, so I said, bro, if these are like $90 ties, like, you know, at the time, you know, we didn't, in the minors, you don't make a lot of money, right? So anyways, this one particular time, he was, like I said, he had one eye, couldn't see for shit anyways. So he drove a Ford Tempo, and it was like this biggest piece of shit you ever saw. And nobody ever wanted to park near him because he just ran into shit. So I said, I'll fix him. So what I did was I let all the air out of his tires, all 4 of them. And we were at practice, and I'm like, I'll fix him. So we come off of practice, and we're all fucking trying to get our shit undone quick, so we get out there and watch him go out there and have a fucking meltdown. Well, we ran out, and the fucker, he's running up the ramp at the thing and driving with all 4 flat tires. He lived at the Holiday Inn like 10 kilometers away. He drove all the way down to the Holiday Inn, and the sparks are flying. We're running in our vehicles trying to catch him, and by the time we got there wasn't a fucking skin of rubber on the fucking tires left. Never even batted an eye at it. He was just.
Did he not know, or was he just like
didn't give a fuck? Yeah, just didn't care.
I'll figure it out when I get there.
Didn't care. No, didn't give a shit. And he wouldn't. He was one of those stubborn guys that he was just like, you know, he wouldn't give you the satisfaction of coming in and freaking out. He said, fuck you. That was the way he was. So, yeah, but he was a lot of fun.
I couldn't imagine a guy with one eye and a fucking knife, like chopping up his tie, like, we're losing, boy. No, that just sounds, that's so old school. It's like a slap shot style kind of thing, you know?
Oh yeah. Well, he's the one that he did slap shot off. You remember when they said, hey, bro, are you shit-faced? And he's like, yeah, if I get boarded, I'm going to get pissed all over himself.
Yeah.
That's who they're referring to, because he was a terrible alcoholic, right?
Oh, no way. I didn't know. I remember that part. And
right.
then what is it? The Ned guy. Is it Ned goes and smokes or something, right?
Yeah, that's right. And if you brought that movie on the bus, he'd have the bus stop, and he'd fire that movie right out the fucking window. And if you found out who brought it on the bus, he'd lose it and you'd be gone. He'd trade you. No joke.
Way.
Yeah.
Oh, so that was kind of a knock at him.
And
he just didn't like it at all. Like it wasn't like a fun thing. It was more of a dick thing.
That's right. If anybody boards me, I'm gonna piss all over myself.
That's not. Well, maybe we'll head back to. Want to head back to where you because you kind of talked about it, and then I jumped into to Brophy here. But you said you got the call up later that year after the Trashers fights, right? Yeah. So how did all that go, and the experience kind of going up, and you know, obviously now with going up, you're a step away from what could have been the NHL, right? So what was all that like?
It was funny because Mark and David Patterson drove down to Richmond. So they drove the 12 hours down to Richmond to watch me play. And they got there the Thursday night, and I went for my morning skate, and I took them out for a bite to eat and for a pregame. And as I'm sitting there at the pregame, I get a phone call, and it's my agent, and he said, they're going to call you up to the American League in Providence. And I said, when? He said, tomorrow. And I said, well, can I play tonight? And they said, no, you got to catch a plane. And so they don't want you playing tonight. So you're going to be out of the lineup tonight. So Mark and David drove all the way down there to come not watch anything. So the pair of them went and got all pissed up. And then they drove to Springfield the next day, because they drove me actually to the airport in Richmond. I flew to Boston that night, and when I landed, I went right from the airport right to the rink in Providence, and didn't have a whole heck of a lot of I didn't have any time to sleep. It was brutal, and we played in Springfield that night, so I slept on the bus. I think it was a 4-hour bus ride to Springfield from Providence. So yeah, it was a pretty neat experience. Of course, you know, you get the call up, and you know you're expected to fight with zero sleep, and you've been on a plane, and you know it wasn't a long trip, and I got so I get there, and so there's a lot of side stories to all this stuff. So it was an interesting thing. So, so the Goon movies, right? Doug Smith. So Doug Smith was there in Providence as what they called the fight doctor. So he's with Boston, and that he would, basically like the fight coach for fighters. And Doug was ended up being Doug and I become friends over the years, and became fast friends then. And so he comes in to the morning skate and introduces himself, and then we start going over everything. And we get to the rink in Springfield. He hands me we get like these little packages before the game about stats and who's what and whatever. So he's like, well, these are the 3 guys that they have that are you're probably gonna challenge tonight. One of these 3 said, but if you want to make a name for yourself, this is the guy. So first guy right at the top list wants to, and I was always the top type of guy that I'm like, yep, I'll tackle that guy. Well, I didn't really look. I just seen Mitch Fritz. I was like, well, whatever. Who's Mitch Fritz, right? So I go out there and I get out there, and they said he's big. And I said, oh, what? Well, how big? Well, 6'9". That's big. But I get out and warm up, and I'm skating around, and I'm like, oh, it's not that bad. Like, he was tall. I'm like, whatever. And then I remember sitting on the bench, and he gets on the ice, and then the face-off goes, and they give me the boot to go out. So I stand beside him. I'm still thinking he's not big. And I remember getting lined up, and I look over, and I just look, and I'm standing right at his hip. I'm like, fuck. Like, this guy's huge, So it was one of those things where I was just like, well, I'm going to ask him to fight. And I go, we're going. I was acting the tough guy. And he's like, no, we're not. I said, yes, we are. He's like, I'm at the end of a shift. Fuck you. And I'm like, thank God.
That's when you want to go on, though. But...
Oh, yeah. So the shift goes, and I finish my shift, and I come off, and Scott Gordon was the coach at the time, and he goes, what do you say? I said, he didn't want to fight. I cut it off. So, and Glenn Murray was the assistant coach. And he goes, you got to make him fight. I said, yeah, next shift for sure. Like that, I'm like, fuck, please, God. And anyways, so I go out, and very next shift he went out. They fucking put me out. They call, actually it was Nate Thompson at the time, or who was it? Nate Robinson. They call him off. Yeah. And,
the Bulls guy we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Oh, shit, that's awesome.
Yeah. So Nate comes off. I jump on, and I go and I cross-check this guy. And I'm like, we're going. He's like, fuck you, we're not fighting. So I'm like, okay, perfect. So basically I turned to go as a puck, and all I seen out of the corner of my eye were gloves. And I'm like, fuck, I'm done. Like, anyways, the fight went on, and I did well. I just knew I had to get him in tight, because if that Mongoloid stretched me out, I was in big trouble. And I pulled him in tight, and I tried to punch him in the head. That was a waste of time. So I could feel like there was this like space between his torso and his hip pad, and I just started punching him in the ribs, and he went down. So then I was in good. I was like, everybody thought I was the toughest guy ever for a couple of days anyways. So I did all right against him, but because at the time he'd been called up with the Islanders a few times in Tampa, and he was a pretty tough guy too, but a real gentleman, real good guy.
So, well, and that's the thing, like you said there, just before you get in there, you got him in tight, because if he gets stretched out, he's got the reach, and he's coming down on you, right?
Oh yeah, I knew I was strong at the time, so I could pin him against. I just kept pushing him against the boards, and I'm like, please God, don't let him loose, because he was strong. By the holy shit, But yeah, no thanks.
So did you do your homework on guys? Like, when you went into games, like when you knew Mitch Fritz was there, like would you look at his tape kind of thing? And if you knew there was a big heavyweight there, like, were you ever nervous before the games, or how did that play out for you?
Yeah, the thing about fighting is, you hear guys all have the same thought process in a lot of ways, but and everybody has their own thing. And for me, fighting was obviously it's your job. You knew what you were there to do. So obviously I did my homework, and I had my own style. I was never a type of guy that. I never believed in standing there and taking punches. I thought that was stupid, in my own opinion. I thought, if I'm going to make a career at this, there's no there was absolutely 0 point in just getting my head bashed in to give a few punches. I didn't mind taking the odd one, but why bother, right? So, but I also wasn't a firm believer in being a suitcase either, because there is a little entertainment value into watching a fight too. You want everybody to enjoy it as well. So, but at the same time, for us, I mean, for me, it was, there was nights there that when you knew you're going to get into it with a guy that was legitimate and that was going to put your name on the board. You knew you had to be, there was some nerves there for sure.
Yeah,
So anyways, maybe let's circle back a bit here, because we kind of started right in your pro thing. Let's go back to where growing up, because we know we've got some good stories we want to get to through junior, but you grew up in Ottawa, Canada, right? Am I right with that?
No, so no. We grew up in Brighton, but then my dad at the time was building the 416 highway.
Okay.
So we moved and played in Ottawa. We moved to Ottawa when I was in grade 7, and we were there for about 3 years.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I knew that part because I knew you were in Ottawa. Mark always told me that, but I didn't realize it originated. But then you would have played only a few years in Ottawa and then back to Brighton, and then so did you ever play AAA, or was it just Brighton Braves? Or
I played AA in Ottawa when I got to Canada. Was the first so I played 2 years AA there, or 3 years or whatever the hell it was, and then which was their AAA system at the time, and then when I came back, I could never crack a AAA lineup other than summer AAA in Quinny. So no, I never played. I just played my minor hockey in Brighton, and came up through the ranks that way, and played junior C in Colborne as a 15-year-old, and then my next year I walked on in Trenton, and that's a story in itself too. But and then the rest is kind of just played. I ended up playing 4 years in Trenton. So.
Well, I always like to, and the reason why I brought up the minor hockey is because I always like to bring up the fact that you don't have, like, I know there's a lot of guys that play AAA, and I was one of them, but you don't have to play the AAA, to go and to have a career, right? You played a bunch of pro and the AHL, like we said. So, I mean, it's always good to see that, right? You played for your hometown, and then you made junior C at a young age, which that had to have been tough because, you must have been there. Like, you must have had some fights that year as well, right? Even being so young.
Yeah, I think I had that year as a 15-year-old. I had what did I have that year? I know I had at least 10 or 15 anyways that year. We didn't play the whole season. I think we only ended up playing 28 games out of we ended up folding. But that year, I played on 5 teams. I played Bantam in Brighton. I played midget in Brighton. I played juvenile in Brighton. I played high school hockey, and I played junior C. And that was the year that they made the rule after that you can only affiliate with one team because of that. So what I would do is I would get off school, play high school hockey or practice with the high school team if it wasn't before school or after. Then I would go to practice with the Bantams, and the way it was in Brighton would be Bantam, midget, juvenile practice, and I would go to all those, and then I'd go to Colborne for practice that night. We practiced. Yeah, but I mean, I just had a love for it, and there was lots of nights I was on the ice for 5 hours a day, and other nights 2-3 hours. But and sometimes I missed certain things, but I just had a love for it, and it was kind of my my place to get away from reality. Really, I enjoyed hockey, and it still is, to be honest with you. That's why I coach, and it's a nice place to just kind of just be in your element.
Oh, and for sure, I know exactly what you're saying. You're kind of getting away from it all. You're with the boys, you don't have to worry about school or work or whatever the case is. You go to the rink and that's what it's about, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, the hockey's huge, but also the camaraderie with the boys, right? Like, there's so many, and I guarantee you can look back at all the teams you played on, and there's probably hundreds of. Well, you even said when that Danbury thing come out, you had like 200 people message you, right? that's 200 people that that you had a relationship with by playing hockey. So that's awesome. And the next thing, and I know Fleming's got some questions regarding the next step, but the Trenton Sting. So was Alex Armstrong your coach the first year, or
No.
maybe tell us about how the Sting come up? You made it as a walk-on, you said.
Yeah.
And, go through that.
So I, as I said, I was in Colburn the year before they folded. So I naturally at that year they were affiliated with Port Hope Buzzards at the time, and so they gave me a letter to go try out there, and I skated with Port Hope, and they said, yeah, come on back to our main camp or whatever. So I said, okay. Anyways, I got my license, and I was one of my only friends that had the license, and I had a whole Jimmy at the time. So at the time, a friend of mine, Mike McClellan and Rob Finch, they all played AAA that year that I played Junior C, and they all had letters to go try out in Trenton. Well, Cyril, Mike's dad, he asked me, Matt, would you mind driving the boys to the rookie camp? I said, sure, why not? And I was out skating the night before doing, I don't know, for whatever reason, I was doing something. And I always had my bag in my truck anyways. So I went there and I was watching a bit of the skate, and I could skate with these guys. So I thought, well, if I'm going to be here, I might as well see if the John Gibbons would let me skate. So at that time, it was only $50 for the whole weekend. I mean, you skated all weekend for $50. It was crazy, right? So I walked over to John and I said, John, I'm Matt Goody, blah, blah, blah. I said, I played Junior C last year. I said, I'm just driving these guys. I said, would you mind? I never got a letter or anything, but I said, would you mind if I paid my money and came out for a skate? And he said, sure, young man, by all means, come on out. So I went out, and my first game was against the veteran team, and Curtis McLean, who had 100 points the year before, come around the net with his head down, and I tore it right off. And all of a sudden I was in a fight. So my rookie camp in Trenton, in the first 2 days, I had 9 fights in rookie camp. So, I mean, that was just what I did, right? I didn't, so then when they were going to talk to everybody at the end of camp, so Mike Oak was the coach, who's the GM in Peterborough now. I came into the room, and I was like, I didn't really think I needed to talk to anybody. I just came in and said, oh, thanks guys. I appreciate you letting me come out and the opportunity. And I hope I didn't piss anybody off and like the way I said, that's just the way I play. And I just remember Mike goes, well, I hope you continue that. And I said, well, just the way I am. And thanks a lot. And I go to leave. He said, well, you're going to come back to main camp? And I said, I just looked at him kind of funny. And I said, main camp to what? And he said, our main camp. He said, we'd like you to come back. And I said, sure. And I didn't really know how to react to it because I'd never thought. And then I went on to main camp, and I think I fought all the 20-year-olds that year. I think Matt Kenny and Mike Grip and all those guys. And I think I had, 12 fights in main camp of that year, and ended up making it. And I played the next 4 years there. So it was great. I loved playing there. It was a good spot, and it definitely had some peaks and valleys. But it was pretty great spot to be.
I know Fleming's got some questions. So
I'll say, you had 20 fucking fights, and just to get out of camp, like between rookie and main camp.
Yeah.
Holy fuck, that's wild, man. That's just crazy. That's something that wouldn't happen today, right?
And it was funny. I don't like. Obviously, Trent was like that too. I always remembered their rookie camp seemed to be different than other camps that I'd gone to. They had like 6 teams, but the one was always the veterans.
Yeah.
The veterans team, where like other ones would mix it up.
Yeah.
Anyways, that I had seen, and maybe you maybe seen too, which I always found that interesting. And they weren't always as good as you thought, probably because they were probably out of shape and maybe they're having beers, whatever. It was just rookie camp, right? But it was always interesting because I think it was cool to see too, because I think everybody, if you're Team Orange and you're playing the veterans, everybody got up for that game, right? Where the veterans are like, these guys are you know what I mean? Like you're up, you're playing them, you're hitting, Curtis McLean, right? Like, and you're fighting and that kind of sets the tone. So I think it's kind of neat that they did that. I don't have a clue what they do now. Obviously, it's a totally different organization in Trenton, but I always liked how they kind of did that.
Yeah, I did too, to be honest with you. Yeah, it made it fun.
Yeah. And then, so that was year one. Then, so Alex Armstrong, I want to talk about him. When did he come into the mix here?
It was year two.
Okay.
He was second year. That was the year that we won the conference against Lindsay. And we had our infamous bench clearing brawl against Wellington in game 2 of that series. And I mean, people still talk about that. That was pretty crazy. I got 8-game suspension over that one. So,
So Fleming's got questions for that because I know he's asked me 40 times about it. So
it's funny because I just remember how big of a rivalry Trenton and Wellington was. So I went to Bayside, and I just remember going with the boys after school when you guys were playing Wellington. Like, that rivalry was really hot at the time, right? So there was a bunch of guys from Wellington on the team. There was some from Trenton. So I remember just going to the game. We went to game 1, and I remember going to game 2, and there was just like a lineup all the way to fucking Harvey's, like just to get tickets like 4 o'clock. But the end of the game, so you guys lost that game, I think. I think you lost game 2. Is that the year Adam Taylor was the goalie, wasn't he? I think.
Well, Adam Taylor, but we brought Brandon Sacco in.
Yeah, okay, that's right. So,
yeah.
So after the game, there's a brawl. The bench is clear. I remember Curtis McLean was in it. But you come out and, correct me wrong, you grabbed a hold of Tyler Longo, and he was their captain at the time, right? So can you kind of walk us through that story and what was going through your mind when you jumped? Are you looking for him, or what was going through your head?
Well, they had, I think it was it DJ Miracle at the time? They brought him in.
Yeah.
And so go rewind to the first game. I remember they brought him in because they were going to try and wrangle me to try to keep me under control. So, like you said, Flemmer, like the rivalry between Trenton and Wellington was so intense, and I exuded that. Like, I wouldn't sleep for, like, I'm not joking. If we had to play them on a weekday game or like on Friday, I wouldn't sleep all week at all because I'd be just wound right up. And usually I ended up getting thrown out in the first 2-3 minutes because I just tried to go nuts. I couldn't handle myself. It was brutal. So, but what I did, I remember him coming around the net in the back. You remember how in Wellington, the old Duke Dome, where it's all like concrete in the home end, and I just ran him as hard as I could and just demolished him. And that was sort of set the tone for the series, but also set the tone between him and I. And he sort of stayed away from me after that. And anyways, Wellington had a great team. Tyler Longo, obviously, he's incredible talent at the time, and they had so many guys like, Tyler Rivers and Ryan Woodward and Brandon Harker, and just so many guys that could really put the puck in the net, and they were heart and soul guys too. Like, both teams, we all played against each other through. Like, it was quite a rivalry all the way through, and with the guys, anyways. But aside from the two towns, but anyways, yeah, they won that game. I think they scored the empty netter, made it 3-1. Well, there was a minute left or whatever, and they threw out Miracle. I think it was DJ, I think, or BJ, I can't remember. Anyways, they threw him out with Curtis, and he started going after Curtis. Well, our big Russian at the time was out there, Andrei Gershushkin, and he intercepted him. But at the time, I was on the bench, and I remember Alex going, "Goody, go." I'm looking at him going, "I can't. There's 5 guys on the ice." He's like, "No, just go." And I'm like, "Okay." So I left my gloves on the bench and just hopped over. Well, I skated over to where DJ was to try to fight him. And then I turn around, and it's just a huge, like, everybody started going. And, of course, DJ was hanging on to Andre like for dear life, and Andre was a strong, couldn't fight, but I mean, he was just a big, strong Russian, so like he was fine. And I turned around, and I remember Chris Johnson. He was from Thunder Bay, and he was a defenseman we had, and he was going around like sucker punching guys, and then he was screaming and yelling. It was just like a chaotic. Anyways, I seen Tyler skating across the ice to try and get him. And I caught Tyler just as he was going to sucker Chris. And I caught him. And when I caught him, he went down on the ice. And I just remember, like, when I caught him, the way it worked, I fell right on top of Tyler. And I just remember just going at him. And the next thing I remember is John Gibbons coming on the ice and pulling me off of him. And
I didn't know
and
that.
I remember John going, Matt, you got to stop, Matt. You're going to kill him. And I got up and John took me, and Scotty Hilton was the trainer. They like pulled me into the dressing room down below. And yeah. So then anyways, I had to take the fall for all that. Like so that Skip didn't get in shit. So they said I acted alone and it was all me. But back then I only got 8 games really. So which really wasn't all that bad. And I just remember poor Tyler there the next game, both his eyes are black, and swelled right shut. And then we won the next 3 games. They were so afraid of us, like we beat the hell out of them, and it was still a good series, but we'd owned them mentally after that. And I have some pictures of that, like the old and somebody gave me, and I remember there's a picture of Brandon Sacco with his black blocker still on, had a guy on the ground just giving it to him. Some of the pictures are pretty cool. So, but it was an amazing rivalry, and the 2 towns were just right in the middle of it. And it was fantastic, and it set it up for a few years after that too. So, and it's just unfortunate it's not the same anymore.
Well, and the one thing Fleming and I were talking about this before too was like, back then, and that was before Trenton was renovated and everything, right? It was all wood kind of Memorial downtown. And obviously you had the old Duke Dome. They just jam-packed people in there. Like, you wouldn't get away with it now because of the fire code and everything. But I remember going to one of those games. I don't know if it was the one with the brawl, but it was that series. And I was as a kid, right? And, like, you could barely see. And I was short as it is. I could barely see the game because, like, even where the standing room was, it was packed to the wall. Like, you couldn't walk around the rink. It was that jammed in Trenton. And I remember in Wellington through the years, too, in that corner there, they would set up tables, and people would stand on just regular tables, to see over the other people that are standing. It was pretty cool to see. It was just jam-packed. So, honestly, like, you like to say the rivalry's still there, but it's not there to that extreme, not even close. And is that because you think that's because of the intensity and the fighting that was around then, or the type of style that the hockey is now, or what's your biggest on that?
Personally, I think a couple of things. One, what people don't understand too is that, on that Trenton team, I think there was, 11 local players. I think 6 or 7 from Brighton alone at that time. And then you go over to Wellington, and I think there was equally as many local players. So, you had Brandon Harper, and like I said, Ryan Woodward, and, the list, Tyler Longo, like they're all, Queenie guys and Belva guys. And then, we had all the Trenton, Brighton, and some Belva, like Graham Melbourne and all those guys there. So, there was that. And the thing was, is like I said, we grew up playing with and against each other. So there was that part of it, and and the fighting part of it too. But I mean that adds to it, obviously. But it was just a different game, and the game is entirely different. I mean, I'm not sure I'm the biggest of fans of the way things are now. There's certain things. I mean, obviously, skill level I think is higher at this point individually, but I think, but it's player to player. I think the team game was more emphasized then, and I feel like that's emphasized in the atmosphere too. I think that because the team game was emphasized more, pass the puck and play more systematically rather than your skill, that everybody sort of took care of each other then. Now it's more a me system, not because it's meant to do that, but it's just because you have to worry about, little Johnny and your skill level, and you got to do this, and you got to be able to handle puck this way and that. And so I think that has a lot to do with it, in my opinion. Just the way the style has changed. It's certainly faster. It's certainly, like I said, more skill, but I'm not sure it's entertainment, more entertaining by times. I don't know if you watched the Battle of Alberta there a couple of weeks ago. Calgary and Edmonton, and there was some fire and some emotion in the game, and there was a little skin in the game, and people want to watch that. And, I'll stay up at 10, 11 o'clock at night to watch that, where I wouldn't stay up. I'm a Leaf fan, but I wouldn't stay up to past 7 o'clock to watch that garbage. So just have some passion. I think that's what's lost in a lot of it.
That's something we talk about.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with you too.
It's kind of something we talk about in the show too.
Sorry, go ahead.
Like even the Rangers and like watching this year, like how that brawl kind of happened last year, right? And then the Rangers go out this year and they sign like Ryan Reeves, like Barclay Goodrow, like guys to come in and take care of the situation, right? So I mean, and we say like it's entertainment. Like I hadn't watched a Rangers Capital game, in the last 10 years. I won't miss one now because it's top-notch TV. Like I'll skip a Leafs game. I'm a Leafs fan too, to watch that because it's entertaining. It's what people want to see, right? So I know times have changed and the game's a little different, but man, the NHL needs rather some entertainment value to these things too. And people are paying big money for tickets, and sometimes that's what people want to see.
Well, you add emotion into anything, whether it's ping pong or badminton or soccer or hockey, and hockey is an emotional game anyways. And I feel like we've taken the emotion out of it, and we've made it very robotic. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that you can say fighting, whatever. You don't need to fight. Hitting, the scrums after, just the emotion, the guys yap and all that part of it. I mean, I was always a fighter, but you didn't need to fight. I thought there was a time for it, and there was a place for it. But these stage fights, I have no time for that either. And I have no time for guys that, they get in a big fight, they'll get in a fight and then they tap each other afterwards. Battle. Tap each other after the game. You've done it. You do your job after the game. And that's the kind of thing for me that's where the emotion is lost in it. You got the two teams, and you got your two heavyweights going on, and then you see them battling each other, and they tap each other. Well, where's the emotion? Well, they're buddies now. So that to me, that's just bullshit. And I'll argue that right to the death.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you there. Like, and that's where hockey's funny because regular season and playoffs are so different, right? Like, and you see where less things are called, but in the playoffs there is more emotion. Maybe not what there was in the '90s, but compared to regular season, for me, I think it's night and day. And I hate to rip Leaf fans, but we all know it's the truth. You don't have the emotion, right? And this year they're not even doing anything in the regular season, but the last few years they've been really, really good regular season because you don't really need as much to succeed. But playoffs, you got to dig deep. You got to finish checks. It's those extra plays, all that stuff, that style of game that's going to get you forward. And that's where kind of the Leafs are struggling. And that's what you're talking about, right?
What I attribute everything to is it's a money game, right? So, it's 82 game season. You can't play the way you do in the playoffs all season. It's not sustainable. You'll have too many injuries. You'd have to up your roster sizes to 30. In my opinion. So it's not sustainable, and that's why the Leafs are great. They'll win tons of President Cups with the type of teams they have, but they'll never win Stanley Cups. Those types of teams, right? If we're just talking about the Leafs, whatever. But and that's why but there still can be emotion in every game. And there's going to be games where guys are like, everybody's human. You're not going to give your best effort. I don't give a shit if you're getting paid $90 million or $90. There's going to be nights that you can't give your best effort. You're just human, but you can always give you can always put your heart in something all the time. So if people can see that and feel it, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, and looking back and the success you had, do you think that's one of the main reasons is because of what you put into it, as far as you're putting it all on the line? Yeah,
I mean, I care. I cared about my teammates. I sometimes it's a lot like my life. I always put my teammates and everybody first before myself. And it's funny. Somebody would slash me, and I knew that if I retaliated, we'd take a penalty. But if someone slashed one of my, top guys, I'd go berserko and I couldn't hardly control myself. But, it was just the way it was, right? And so I was a very emotional guy. And then sometimes it hindered me too, and it hurt. And by times it hurt the team. And I had to learn over the years and mature that way to become, smart about it and know when to be able to take it and to when not to. So that was the biggest thing. But yeah, I think I always think that emotion, and that it can resonate with people always. I really do. If you care about something that somebody cares about, then and people will always resonate with that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, you got something, Flem?
Well, I was just going to say, like, we keep talking about fighting here, but you weren't only a fighter, right? Like, your last couple of years in Trenton, like, you had, I think it was half a point a game kind of thing. Like, you played 60 games, you got 30 points. So you weren't just a fighter, right? So kind of, and you did get an assist when you were playing with Providence, isn't that correct? I did see that on your hockey team.
Yeah. Nate Thompson. He thank God he had good hands. But that was I remember it because it was special to me because it was the only point I got there, and but I made a good play. It was in Lowell, and I made a really nice pass to send him on a breakaway, and I mean he just made the goalie look stupid, and it was pretty special for me to watch a guy. And I mean I play with guys that all those guys like Christopher Stieg and Nate Thompson and Frigg. There's also so many guys there that went on to play in the NHL, but those just stuck out in my head because they became friends while I was there. So but yeah, no, just good bunch of guys, but it was fun.
Yeah, no, that's got to be one of your all-time best moments. So one question I did want to ask though, and this doesn't even have to apply like when you're playing pro or junior kind of thing. Like, when's one moment when you're playing hockey, could even be coaching, when you sat back and thought after a month, said like, I'm the fucking man, like I'm on top of the world right now. Like, is there anything that sticks out to you like that?
You know what? I don't. I've never thought of it that way, but I will tell you there was a time when I was coaching, and I was coaching actually in Port Hope, and it was I think we were playing against Allison, so it would have been in the third or fourth round. It was the first year that we took our first run at the smallest cup. And we were playing really well. We weren't expected, and I didn't even expect us to do what we did. But the moment where it's like everything sort of kind of came tenfold, kind of came around, and I watched the guys, and my assistant coaches were John Foley and Mark Soke at the time, and we'd put a lot of effort into it, and Ian Green was there as well. And what a great bunch of guys, and we put so much effort in it, and just to see what the team had and how far the team come. Like, we had, I think 9 or 11, I think 11 that year, first year players, and to be on that stage and just completely dominating and just playing so well. And I thought, to myself, we took a bunch of guys that were basically misfits, AA players and stuff that nobody wanted. I had one guy who led the league in scoring by the name of Dalton Lawrence. I found him in a beer league, and I just walked into the rink and seen him playing, and I asked him if he wanted to play junior hockey. And but just to see everything kind of come together, and it was just like, wow, this is pretty cool to be able to do that. And I think for hockey, I mean, I've had a lot of cool moments in hockey, but as a coach, and to be able to put everything together and have a group of guys to do things and see them all kind of pulling on the same rope, that to me is the ultimate. It was the pretty coolest. It's been the coolest thing for me for sure.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer, because it kind of ties into like your emotion hockey kind of thing. Like, when you're invested in the people, when you're the coach, right? Like, you can get the most out of them. You know what buttons to push. Like, Brokey and I both coached a lot. Like, we've talked on the show, and those are some of my best memories in sports too. Is just kind of coaching kids and bringing a team together, right? It's just something special. And when everyone's pulling for each other, it's something special that happens. So, no, that's a cool story.
Yeah.
I'll just say one quick thing. I'll never forget my first junior C coaching game. Fleming probably doesn't know this, but we played Matt, And that was in the middle of when they went on that 3-year, and we beat them in overtime. I don't know how many games we won after that, but I won't forget that one, buddy.
Yeah, I'll just say you're welcome.
Backup goalie that night.
Johnny Foley says to me after, "Brokey, were you fist pumping?" I'm like, "Of course I was." So maybe talk about coaching for a bit since we're at that. Talk about the transition from because you've been coaching for got to be 10 years now, or how long has it been?
10, 11, maybe 12 years now. Yeah. 09, I think, was my first year, 08, 09. So it was the first year that the Golden Hawks were in there. I coached the junior A team there. So.
That's a long time ago then.
Yeah.
So, so the transition from playing pro, and then obviously, like you said, you love going to the rink. It's your place to get away from it. I know this talking to guys, obviously a lot of hockey guys and athletes too, is some guys really struggle with, they play hockey all their life, then they're 20 or they're 22, 3, whatever, and then it's done. You're used to going to the rink 5, 6, 7 times a week to once maybe for an hour of beer league. It's definitely hard, and a lot of guys can struggle with it. Is that something where you're like, I got to get into coaching when you're done? I got to get into something. And then obviously you just stayed with it?
No, to be honest with you, the way my career ended wasn't too illustrious. I ended on a 12-game suspension. And I left hockey kind of hating hockey, to be honest with you. And I always said when hockey wasn't fun, I wouldn't play anymore. And I just woke up one morning and I looked in the mirror and I had enough. And I went home and started work. I left on a Friday. I got home on a Saturday, and I started working in Ottawa in construction, what I do now, and I never looked back. And I didn't step foot into an arena for an entire year. And I heard that Port Hope had bought or sold, or were moving, to Trenton. And for the life of me, I still don't know why I thought about coaching. And I thought, actually that's a lie. What had happened was a couple of buddies wanted me to play beer league in Brighton, and so I got playing a little bit of hockey just at the very start of the year, near the end of the summer. And I started loving hockey again. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll try coaching. And so I went to the home show in Trenton, and I introduced myself to Rod and Sandy, and I just said, listen, I've played in Trenton for 4 years. I went and played pro for 6, and I'm just looking to get into coaching, and I would really love to try as an assistant coach, and like to learn from your head coach. And the head coach at the time was Matt Muir, and to my surprise, I think John Vandertorn was part of the organization at the time with Trenton, just helping them get things in order in the thing. And they to my surprise, they asked me to come on board as an assistant coach. So I was obviously elated and excited about the opportunity, and my first coaching job. And then it was crazy, like a month and a half into it, I become head coach. Never coached before, and he was working and living in Oshawa, and it became too much for him. And it was actually way too much for me too. I was working in Ottawa too at the time, and family life wasn't great. I know Crystal was not happy with me at the time because I was spending more time at the rink and at work than I was even at home for 10 minutes. So, we had a really good year that year for a first year. Port Hope had, which was the same team, but they hadn't made the playoffs for 3 or 4 years. We finished third that year, and we lost to Kingston in the second round, but played very well. And they had a real good team that year. That was the year I think did they go to the RBC Cup that year? No, they were right there anyways. But they had a hell of a hockey team, and we played real well. And and it was just kind of one of those things where I got into it, and as soon as I started getting into it, it felt like I was playing again. And But to your point, Flemmer, like, the playing as opposed to things, it took me a while to mature into from a player to a coach. And, I took a lot of suspensions because I took things that would happen to my guys very personal, and I was hard on referees. And, did they deserve it? Fucking right. But, there's a way about going about it, and I wasn't going about it the right way. And so it was really tough for me. But I will tell you, it made my guys appreciate me more because I knew I'd go through the wall for them. So it took me longer to change because I didn't care about the consequences, because I knew my guys respected me for it. So, and I kept thinking about that when I was, more worried about if, my guys were good, so, so it took me a long time actually, it took me a 20 gamer there a couple of years ago to say, okay, I guess it's time to fucking dial her back. But, and actually in that 20 game, I shouldn't have got any games. I didn't do anything wrong, but, but eventually you do stuff the way I did things, it catches up to you right or wrong. So, it was just my eye-opening situation. And I had a good group that year too, and they kept her going for me. And I got back and we went on to we obviously lost the air again in the finals, but they were just a good group there too. I love them, that group of guys, the core group for sure. So yeah, coaching's been great for me.
It's something you think you'll keep on doing for a while?
It's funny you say that, because I think I'm gonna this year's I've started my own business, and hockey takes a lot of time, and right now I think I have to focus on my business and stuff like that. Hockey's always gonna be part of my life, but at this time, I mean, to be honest with you, after I get done this season, I think that I'm going to take a bit of a hiatus and see where life takes me. And, I'm going to concentrate on family life and work and in my business and stuff like that, and see where gets me, and go from there.
Well, you know what? It's one of those things where you can always circle back. I know it's been a while since I've coached, and I know I went to actually Picton Nap. I actually texted you by accident. I texted your brother, I thought, but went to the Picton Napanee game on last Friday. Whenever you go back and you've been away, there's always those instincts. Like, I was talking to Hawk after, and I'm telling him, you should do this, you should do that, right? Just because you're always thinking about it, right? It's something that it doesn't get away from you. Like you say, you're always going to be involved in hockey, whether it's watching the NHL or going to games. So it's always something that, maybe you take a break for a few years or whatever, and who knows, maybe you get back into it, right? You didn't even know you were going to get into it at the start, by the sounds of it, with Trenton, and you get into it, and then you end up coaching for like 11 years, right? So,
yeah, so who knows, maybe I'll even buy Senators season tickets because they're so damn cheap.
They are cheap. They're almost giving them away. I'll tell you, though, they are going to be an entertaining team to watch, and they've got some players with some fire compared to Toronto.
Yeah, we Chris and I have gone to a couple of games. We enjoy it.
Yeah, well, so a couple things. I'm just gonna maybe shoot out some stuff. So maybe we'll talk about a couple of fights. Maybe have you ever fought another coach before? I don't know if you're allowed to say this one. This might be an edit, but is that
it's not. I mean, it is what it is. It's not. It's a secret, but it's not. I mean, everybody knows about it. We were in Mississauga one night, and this was my first year in Trenton, and they had all they were wearing cages, and every time there was a scrum, the sticks would come up, and I got yelling at the referee, of course, and I said, call it. The one guy, I forget who it was. I think it was Brad Pronowski. He got, which he was a short little bugger anyways, but he got shot in the mouth there. He was bleeding. There was no call, and so I kind of got a little bit ugly with the assistant coach for the other team. I forget his name now. It doesn't matter anyways, but he got mouthing back at me. We got John back and forth, and in Mississauga, that old rink there, the benches are kind of interconnected through the hallway and behind. So, so I said to him, he started yapping at me. I yapped back at him, and I said to him, I said, well, just meet me in the hallway then. He said, yeah. I said, yeah. Well, I start walking down. I was kind of half serious, but I wasn't really serious. Like we were just John. Anyways, to my surprise, he came, and from what I gather, he was a bit scrappy himself. So, anyways, the damn fool came running down, and anyways, he leapt at me, and I caught him with a lucky one. Anyways, and he was out cold right in the hallway, and when on his way down, he was grabbing my shirt with his finger, and he clipped all the buttons down my shirt, nipped them all off, and anyways, the play's going on up, like the game was still going on. Him and I were down below, and I just sort of kind of leaned him against the wall, and I'm like, well, going. And then all of a sudden I hear the horn go, and everybody starts coming down, and everyone, all of a sudden this big melee starts, like, what's going on? And this guy starts coming too, and all of a sudden he wants to fight me again. And of course, the crowd separated us and all this. Anyways, I got no buttons left on my shirt. The referees didn't know what to do. The cops were called. They didn't know what to do because the guy, he wouldn't admit anything. So, of course, he didn't go back on the bench. I did. I had to hold my shirt closed the whole third period. Anyways, we ended up winning the game, and the boys gave me the hard hat for hardest work of the game that night. So, that was that. But I got in shit. The OHA called me, and the OJ called me, and they said, we know, but we don't know what happened, and it won't happen again, Matt. So, my reputation kind of followed me around with my bullshit, and I got away with, as much as I didn't get away with, I got away with a lot too. So,
holy Jesus, that's
such a good story. That's such a good story.
And I didn't realize that the game was going on. Like, you guys went behind the thing that your teams were playing.
Yeah.
Holy shit, that is something else. That's something else. And so, obviously you come from you got a couple of brothers, and they're scrappy. Obviously, Mark's one of my best friends, and he was a little bit of a fighter too, Yep. And we've had some stories. We haven't had Mark on, but we've talked a story there. But there was a story. I'm going to see if we can bring it up. Did you not fight Mark and your brother in one of the Brighton tournaments? And they were on the same team, Flem.
I know. Someone told me. I was asking guys about
that story too.
Someone told me this. I didn't want to bring it up.
How the heck did that happen?
You know what? So a couple of years ago, we used to play in the dunk tournament in Brighton, in the George Dunk Memorial Tournament, and we Mark and I. Usually, I would put my own team in, and Mark would, as you know, Mark would put his team in. So this particular year, I think Mark and them were, I think they were pipelining at the time, I think that year. So him, McAllister, and them kind of came back. Did you play that year?
I don't know if I played this year. I don't think I did for some reason.
Yeah. So anyways, I know Kyle Rowe was there, and a couple other guys, and little fella from Tweed. What was it? Latchy, yeah, he was there. Anyways, and there was a couple lads, buddies of mine playing, because we just kind of made a team last minute to try to throw it in. But Mark and McAllister and myself too included, but none of us had played really all year, so we were so terribly out of shape, and we're not used to losing, especially in that tournament. We kind of dominated, right? So we were getting our asses handed to us pretty handily, and I'm a big believer in respect the game, and so the game was out of hand as far as the score, and I think the puck, Mark got a penalty, and he was getting frustrated, and he was in the penalty box, and the puck got dumped down, and somebody reached over from the bench and tried to play the puck, and I hate that shit. Like, it just just don't make, we already look like assholes because we suck, so don't do that. So I said something, and then Mark chirped off at me, and of course I told him to shut his fucking mouth, and he got mouthing, and because he doesn't back down either. And next thing you know, I told him, with me and Mark, I just said, hey, keep your mouth shut, and he fuck you. And the next thing you know, we're swinging. He caught me with one pretty good one right in the eye, and fuck, I was laid up for almost a week there because his thumb caught me right in the eye. I couldn't see. Fuck, I was so fucking mad. Anyways, but yeah, and then I remember Mark Andrews, who was the referee at the time. They're like, aren't you going to break this up? He says, fuck you. He says, you break it up. They didn't even throw us out.
I wouldn't be getting in there either. Like, let the brothers go. They're on the same team.
Yeah, and the next year they had the what they call the Goody rule. They said, you fight your own team, you're not kicked out, but if you fight anybody else, you're kicked out of the tournament. So it was a going joke around the Brighton area for the tournament.
Holy shit! Yeah, because I heard it was Vandertorn was trying to break it up or something. I don't know.
Adam ended up getting that big mongoloid. He got in there and yeah, because I was starting to be mad.
That's too funny. Another guy that, he passed away too early, but he was a big fighter for the Belleville Bulls when Fleming and I were growing up. Jake Gilmore. Now, did you fight Jake? And he was a couple of years younger, so was there ever anything going on there? I just thought I'd throw that name out there.
Yeah, Jake. I always liked Jake. Yeah, Jake and I fought twice. He was in Port Hope at the time. I think it was in my second year in Trenton, and he was upcoming. And he and I went. We went in Trenton there, and Bobby Bell was the referee at the time.
Bobby Bell.
And I loved Bobby, and because he loved to see the heavyweights go. And if you didn't have a great fight, the first one, 4 minutes for roughing. It was awesome. So. And I remember fighting Jake at the time, and I caught him with a couple of good ones, caught him pretty good, and then we fell, and Bobby's like, "Don't worry, boys, you're coming back." He says, 4 minutes for roughing, and poor old Jake, I caught him pretty good below the eye. He had to get stitches and that, and he was bleeding. And Jake's like, fuck that. Like, I can't fight right now. He was bleeding. And anyways, I ended up fighting another guy, actually. I think it was who the fuck was it? Was played for the Leafs. Played for Leafs there not too long ago.
Andre DeVoe?
Played for New Jersey. Who?
DeVoe?
No.
I'm trying to think who would have been playing Junior A then.
It was his rookie season too. He played for the Leafs. This is terrible. And he played for New Jersey. He had a 50 or 30 goal season in New Jersey, and he was just a little rat. David. It'll come to me. But yeah. Anyways,
not David Silverstone. No, he would.
Clarkson.
No, David Clarkson.
Yeah, Clarkson.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. That's right. I forgot about him.
It was David Clarkson's first fight. He came out and asked me to fight. I was like, get away from me. And anyways, we ended up fighting, and it wasn't a good scene. Actually, he mentions it in the Globe and Mail when they interviewed him and talked about me and his first fight. And this is when he was playing for the Leafs. He talked about it. It was kind of cool, too. So.
Oh, that's definitely pretty awesome, yeah.
That's a good one.
Flem, you got something there, bud?
I was supposed to say, did you ever fight John Nasty Morasti? I didn't see it on your, like when I was looking at the hockey fights, I didn't see any, but I've heard through the grapevine that you and Nasty went a few times. Yeah,
we went twice. Once in Port Huron, once in Danbury, and actually, he is both fights. I mean, the first fight was in Danbury wasn't much of a fight. It was just sort of kind of a grappling match and didn't really get going much. It was just kind of a spur of the moment. There was a bunch of stuff going on. The second fight was in Port Huron, and it was funny because that little fucker is tough, and I had a reach on him. So when and like I said, I never was one guy like these guys that fight with him and wanted to go toe to toe, and that's just stupid. It's like going with Domi. It's dumb, Like, don't stand in there and take punch per punch because you're not going to hurt him. He's just had a head like a cement block, and I remember hitting him, and it just kept being this like cement, just And I just looking at him like I'm hitting him with everything I got, and you could hear the smacks. And I looked at him and he's just smiling, just a big grin on his face. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, and anyways, I had him by the shoulder pad and at one time and then we both slipped at the blue line, but I think it was slipped on our stick or a glove. Anyways, and I grabbed him at the same time and pulled him down with me. And I'll never forget this as long as I live. I looked over. I kind of fell down on all fours, but I never let him go. And I just happened to look over, and that crazy fucker, he wasn't very tall. He landed on his head, and he was still smiling, and he was straight up, standing straight up when on his head. And I'm like, how is this freaking prick still smiling? Like goosebumps all over his face, and just smiling. And that was the end of the fight. But yeah, he was a tough little bastard, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, he was a fucking nut bar. So through all the guys. Go ahead.
I never understood why guys like him like just stand in there, but I mean, hey, he made a good living at it, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. So out of all the guys you kind of fought playing pro and I guess even junior, could you name a couple guys where one could you say like, hey, I know I'm going to handle this guy pretty easily tonight, and then was there another guy that's maybe you knew it was going to be a tough night at the office?
I mean, when I was a junior near the end of my career was I was kind of cocky a bit like that. And that was, I didn't really worry about anybody. I remember getting an email the weirdest thing I ever had happen to me was I got an email from a kid from I think he was an American kid. His last name was Bach. He played in Guelph, I think, ended up playing in Guelph or Kitchener for them the next year. But he wanted to be a fighter. And his dad emailed me and asked me to fight him. And it would be a great experience and all this stuff. And the kid actually came to me before the game, introduced himself to me, real nice kid. And I was like, I'm in my third or fourth year at that time. And I was just like, well, like, I don't know, maybe you should get a few more fights. And he's like, no, we got to do this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, the dad was right there. And he's like, yeah. Anyways, we fought. He wasn't near ready to do that. And I mean, I took it easy on him big time. But anyways, he went on to play in the OHL and fight for a while. But that was one of the weirdest experiences. And he had a few welts on his face after. And I never really went at him too hard, but after the thing, oh, thanks, appreciate it. And I got an email from the dad, the next day or so, and it was a really weird, like, anyways, it was just
thanks for beating up my son.
Yeah, it was just odd.
Appreciate that.
Any pointers, like, and I mean, obviously I kind of gave him some stuff because he was one of those guys that wanted to lunge. That was the first thing I said to him, like, don't lunge, you crazy bugger. But anyways, obviously, but he fought everybody that year, and it was good. I don't know if he emailed every tough guy in the league or not, but yeah, he was. And then I remember my first year pro, the very first year I got to was trying out in Port Huron, and was it Mike Mackey? I think Mike Mackey, yeah. And we were in Fort Wayne, so it was the first exhibition game in Fort Wayne. So Fort Wayne Commons, they have a beautiful rink in Indiana there, and like the rink holds like 12,000 people. And for the exhibition game, actually my dad and a couple other guys came down to watch the game. And I look up in the stands, there's like 9,000, 10,000 people, and I'm thinking to myself, there's more people in the stands than there are in my town, Anyways, and of course it's my first pro game, so I'm nervous, but fighting wasn't a big nerve. I didn't get too nervous for fighting because I was good at it. And I just remember a couple of fights went on, and then I got into a fight with this Mike Mackey guy, and guy goes, "You want to go?" And I said, "Yep." And so we went, and I caught him with one right at the start of the fight, like bang. And I'm like, "Oh, she's over." Well, no, it wasn't, because he hit me with about 3 or 4 right quick. And I thought, holy shit, like that was my first lesson, as a pro, like, no, it's not over till it's over. You stay right in it. And I took about 3 or 4 good ones. I ended up winning the fight, but But I took some good shots. He took a good one at the start, and I thought, okay, I'm in it here now. So it was a real good lesson to learn as a young player for sure.
Yeah, you weren't steamrolling guys anymore, kind of like you were at the end of the Trenton, right?
No.
Yeah.
No.
I got something. So obviously, like we'll circle back here just for a second. The Danbury Trashers. Obviously, there was a lot that went on behind the scenes with, I guess, the mob and all that stuff. And was there any other crazy things that might have happened, or playing? Because you always hear about these stories, right? But a lot of people don't hear till after the fact. As far as getting paid under the table, or bringing guys in for one game, crazy stuff like that. Was there any other teams you saw or played against other than them?
I mean, they were nuts. I mean, they brought in Frank Bialos to try to fight me. I remember those were the games I only ever started were in pro wars against them, and they'd have 5 guys that wanted to fight you because I think they got paid a bonus to fight. So I remember being like, the puck would drop and we'd win the draw, and our guys would skate down the ice, and all 5 of guys would come to me. You want to go? I'm like, well, I can't fight all you fucking idiots. Pick one and let's go. No, it was. There's always different teams that have shoddy owners and guys that didn't get paid. I know when I was in Port Huron, we'd have fist fights in the parking lot. The second year, especially, that I was there, because we didn't want the friggin' checks to bounce. So guys were fighting in the parking lot to get their checks in first before the other guys' checks bounced. So that was an experience on its own. And I mean, I could tell you story after story about the bus driver. I remember one time they got a new bus company in Port Huron, and they were going to try it out. So they're going to do a short bus trip. So we were just going to Flint, which is like 3 hours from Port Huron. And so we all piled on the bus, and it was just a coach bus, and everybody gets settled in and sleeping. And that year we had David Alexander Borgard, who's in with the Thrashers and then I had Daniel Berthume, who played for LA and Ottawa, and he was a goalie. And anyways, he was there, and I just remember, I only bring him up in particular because he used to sit 2 seats behind me on the bus all the time. And Bertie and I used to we got along really good. And but I just remember they turned the heat on because it was cool that day on the bus. And I just remember sleeping on the bus, and I could feel something run across my face, and I kind of wiped it off. And all I hear is, just screaming. And I look up, and it's Bert, and he's crawling up the chair. And when they turned the heat on, the fucking bus was infested with roaches, and all the roaches come up the vents. Well, it was just a fucking nightmare. Like, I'm telling you, there was like hundreds of fucking roaches. It was insane. So, that was, I could honestly tell you stories after story after story about bus trips, and we had one bus driver when we were going from Elmira to Adirondack, and he would order room service, and then would come to the room service and be naked and flash the thing, and then they arrested him, and he couldn't leave the state line, so we had to get a new bus at the state line. He got arrested, and we missed like the game. Oh fuck! It was just, I mean, if you have time another day, I could tell you a million stories. But yeah, it was crazy.
Oh, that's awesome. The good old days, eh? The good old days.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe another guy that I wanted just to mention, because he coached me and your brother, and he liked us, and I think he liked you, is Alex Armstrong. So was he your coach for 3 years in Trenton then? And
no, just 2. Yeah, he
just 2.
Coached us for 2 seasons. Yeah.
Well, what was he like for your experience? Was he? He was, because one thing I always remembered was the stupid 4-mile run we had to do before every practice. Oh. I just hated it. 4 miles before every practice. And I remember one time we lost to Bancroft, which is a no-no. And we had to run 6 miles, which is 10 kilometers, and then a 2-hour bake skate. And I've never been that tired in my life. Well, like he was a hard ass, right? Like he was the Army type, like.
Yeah. Skip never ran 5 feet in his life anyways. So, and I'm gonna guarantee that, Jeff, you would cut across the field and in that
Not a chance.
the bullshit. I know goddamn well you're that guy. But
no, I wasn't that guy.
know,
But I was always last for one of the
I know the route that we used to have to take. But yeah, we used to have to do it all the time. And we had to do 8 kilometers for training camp. It was like 8 kilometers, and you had to do it in under 30 minutes. And he had all kinds of different quirky things. And but yeah, he was the first year there. It was almost like a love-hate with him our first year. I mean, we were such a tight group that the year that we won, and we had the brawl with Wellington, and then we went on to beat Lindsay, and then ultimately lost to Thornhill. But I mean, that year, I think Lindsay was touted to number 1 in the country, and then I think Wellington that year was very highly touted too. I think they were, I don't know, in top 5 in the country, and I think we were like 21st rated overall or something stupid like that. Anyways, he just sort of he pushed us in a way where we almost hated him, but like we were so tight and became so tight because we just couldn't stand him, but we all did what he asked. And when we did what he asked, you know what, everybody in any system, I mean, as a coach, it doesn't matter what you're teaching. If everybody pulls on the same rope and everybody does it, it works, right? So he kind of got us all together. He also had a good staff. Like he had Eric Balduc there, was a French guy that he helped us. He's sort of that guy, that glue guy, and Corey Ignis was there as well. And those guys were always kind of intermingling with all of us at all the time, and just kind of when Alex would come unhinged and do something silly that would kind of piss everybody off, they'd be there, just kind of explaining why he would do it, but in the end it's like what Stevie Y used to say about Scotty Bowman, right? You hated Scotty Bowman for 364 days of the year, but when you were holding the Stanley Cup on day 365, you loved him, right? So, that year we accomplished a lot as a group, and more than we actually ever could imagine. And he was a big part of that, and he was a good guy that way for sure. And you learn to respect guys like that.
Yeah, for sure. And just to go on with a stat there, a good buddy of yours, Stewie, who scored the overtime goal, if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, right? He actually got married in the Trenton Arena, right? His first wedding. I just think, that was such a big thing to him because he was my assistant coach one year. And I know he'd always talked about that story, but he scored the goal, that was his moment in life, or one of them, I guess, right? So it's kind of neat.
Yeah, when I sent him a picture a couple of years ago, I was standing on the visiting bench, and I was just waiting for my team to come on the ice. I was coaching Kingston, I think it was, minor hockey, and I was I sat down in the exact spot because I was sitting on the bench in overtime because I wasn't playing, and sitting in the exact spot because I had the perfect view. Like we won the draw, and it was like where the puck came back on Stewie's stick and where he let it go, I had the perfect line of it, and I took a picture of it and sent it to him, just the line of where I was. And I'll never forget that old Bedford tried to do the old Olay, and it bounced off the cheater and bounced in the net once, and we won the game, and that was a big thing. But yeah, old Stewie, and then he got married. I should show you the pictures of that bullshit.
Well, I guess he broke up. That was a long time ago. But we used to. What was her name? Carol or no?
Tracy.
So when I played in Trenton, we used to run into her at Little Texas all the time, and she's like, "Oh, don't worry, I won't say anything." I go to the rink the next day, and Alex like, "So how was Little Texas last night?" It's like,
oh yeah.
What do you mean? I wasn't there. I remember we used to always see her there. Well, back, it's 15, almost 50, probably 15 years ago.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah,
it's crazy to look back at how time flies. And you're older than us to look back at the stories, but it's been a ton of fun, buddy. Fleming, you got anything you want to add to it?
I just wanted to ask.
No.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Just get one. How proud are you of your career? Like, I mean, like we always talk about the guys, like we think it's the coolest thing when guys go off and play in Europe or, keep playing pro, minor pro, and keep grinding out. So at the end of it, how happy are you that you, how happy are you with the opportunity you got to play hockey and your pro career?
Well, I'll say this. It's when you're, Brokey mentioned about playing in Brighton and playing minor hockey, and I'm playing a lot of AAA and stuff like that. You're always told no growing up, and I was always told no. And I was always, even my last year, the coach I had in Trenton basically wrote me off and told me, this is it for you, and you're not going to do anything with hockey. And was very blunt about it. And that's, whatever, it is what it is. But, I just kind of kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And for me to have the sniff at the NHL level and to play even a handful of games in the American League, I'm pretty proud of that. And, do I wish it was more? For sure. Do I always wish that I could have made it? Yeah. But, I look back on it now and I can smile, and I'm pretty excited about it. And my favorite part about all of it is just the people that I met and the experiences that I had. Like I could tell you, like I said, I could sit here for 3 days and tell you the stories, and not one of the same ones. And Crystal could probably sit here and roll her eyes and say, I've heard all the same damn stories 1,000 times. But truthfully, it was truly about the experience, and it's something that I'll take with me till the day I die, and it was a lot of fun. So I really enjoyed it.
No, that's awesome, man. Yeah, it sounds crazy. It's an awesome career. We really appreciate you coming on, but no, it just sounds awesome for sure. Fuck, it's awesome.
Yeah, buddy. Thanks a lot for coming on. It's we loved hearing the stories, and maybe down the road we'll get you on, and maybe we'll get your brother on at some point. We could do something there and tell some stories together. But we definitely had a lot of fun tonight, and I know we're gonna have a lot of laughs with the viewers as well. So again, buddy, thanks for coming on. Best of luck this year, and if it's gonna be your last year coaching for a while, you might as well try and win her, right, bud?
Yeah.
Well, I think this podcast will get more views than the one Winger did with the Spit and Chicklets. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, I should call Biz, because Biz was my roommate and in Wheeling. So
really? Shit.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I didn't know that. The Wheeling Nailers, right?
Yeah, we were roommates. We'd fight at practice and then come back. Everybody laugh at us and say, "What the fuck, guys?" Go home together.
Holy shit! Well, now we gotta have you on for another one. We gotta have a biz story, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's lots of them.
So, all right, buddy. Well, thanks a lot for coming on tonight. We appreciate it, and like you say, best of luck the rest of the year.
Goody,
thanks, fellas.
One thing Brokey didn't say is we do this thing at the end. So we do the BOOclub. That's what we're called here. So I don't know if you know what the BOOclub is. I'm sure you do, but are you in the BOOclub?
You gotta say yeah.
You gotta say
yes. Yeah.
This isn't the old BOOclub that's on North Front there anymore, right?
No, we've changed.
Crystal's gonna think, what the hell they got going on there?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot, buddy. We appreciate it, man.
Thanks a lot.
All right, guys, there you go. So we hope you enjoyed the interview with Matt Goody. I know Brokey and I just had tons of laughs on the podcast and after. I mean, we've been texting about it for probably 2 days straight now, just kind of saying lines over and over again. So again, we just want to say thanks to Matt for coming on. Thanks to Ben from BIHC and Chris Rashad from Rashad Home Hardware for putting this on for us. We hope everyone enjoyed it. And Brokey, did you have a good time with that one, buddy? It looks like
it was phenomenal. We just were looking up some of his stats too, and in the 1 year at the 2 leagues he played in. So he played for the Wheeling Nailers in the Coast, played 9 games, and he had 49 penalty minutes. And that same season, he played in the SP, the Southern Professional, for the Richmond Renegades, and he had 43 games. He had 428 minutes. So that's for all you math geeks out there. That's 477 minutes in 52 games. That's almost 500 minutes. That's almost an average of 10 minutes a game. Average. Like,
and he said sometimes like he was going 3 times a night sometimes with legitimate heavyweights. You know what I mean? So I don't know. We hope everyone enjoyed the interview with him. I mean, I don't think I've had that much fun doing an interview since we started that out. There were some other good ones like Renzi and Newberry and Randy kind of thing. All the guests are great, but he just brought a different perspective, right? Like not a lot of guys are legitimate heavyweights like that. Like he's fought guys that are in the NHL. I think one of the guys he fought, Marasti, fought like a spot in the UFC before. Like he's just an animal. What a good guy too. Like just down to earth, right? Coaching AAA in Kingston now. So just a great guy. And we just want to thank Matt for his time. And what a great interview.
Thanks for coming on, Goody. We'll have to take you and your younger, softer brother out for a whiskey poo sometime, and maybe we'll get a tournament together, and you guys can fight each other again.
Yeah, when you fight people on your own team, you don't get kicked out. That's a real pay for sports tournaments too. But Brokey, I only got one question for you, but Goody's in the club. But are you in?
I'm in the club, bud. The BOOclub.